In this video, we are going to show you everything you need to know to transform your basement from an unfinished place of concrete into a beautiful space like you see behind us. Tutorial videos on how to build, how to drywall, how to do the flooring, how to build a bar, how to do countertops, how to build your bathroom. It's all in this video, so stay tuned. We're going to teach you everything you need to know. Welcome back. We have a really awesome project this month. We're doing a basement renovation from scratch in a 3-year-old home. So the process we're going to use here is really simple. We're going to put down a subfloor system that gives you an air barrier, a moisture barrier, and then something that's wood that you can build your frame on, so you don't have to attach everything to concrete. And that's because most of this area is going to be done with a laminate finish. It's going to be a really nice laminate finish. But some of the other areas we're going to be doing all tile. The hallway, the back area here, we're going to have a bathroom. So that area there, we're going to frame a little differently. So we're going to show you contrasting techniques, and then you can decide which one's right for your job. So a lot of us in the building industry, we've come across this dimpled plastic before. It's called Platon, but the reality is it's not the product name, that's just a product brand name. So this is actually DMX, and this is available at my local building store. I picked it up. I usually use this for my subfloors underneath a 5/8 tongue and groove OSB plywood, and we can screw that to the floor with Tapcon screws. And that's my traditional basement system. But what I was curious about was this little thing right here. So this is another product, same company, DMX. It's blue, it's a 3-in-1. So this is insulated, it's a vapor barrier, and it's soft and cushiony. So you can actually make your subfloor out of this and laminate right over top. They've gone through the trouble of testing it and getting it approved for putting a laminate floor directly on this product. I'm not a big fan of that, especially in this installation, because I'm building interior walls. And I don't want to be setting walls on this, and I don't want to be building my walls first everywhere and then filling all my cavity with this. Because I'm on a walkout and we have this 4-season weather, we run the risk of a thaw freezing cycle and getting moisture underneath our concrete pour. And if that happens, I want to have an airspace that transfer that moisture past all my interior walls and let the building soak all that up over time. If I build my walls first and put this down, I'm going to be trapping moisture and I'm going to get that musty smell no matter what I do. So this is a good product if you're just doing one room and you already have walls, but if you're like us and you're building new walls, go with this system. The funny thing is, they're both plastic, and at the end of the day, it's the same cost per square foot to install this and plywood or this alone. So it really comes down to what's more convenient for you and your situation. But I would recommend both of these products. They both work great. There we go. This will be easier for us to do the layout this way. It's probably a little longer than I need, but that's fine. And we're doing the same thing again on the other side of the room. That's good. So you can see that what we just put down here square footage wise is almost 400 square feet. Took about 10 minutes, which is awesome. We tape it together with a new blue tuck tape. This stuff is the same as the red, only it has been tested and approved for wet areas. So this will hold on plastic to plastic even when it gets wet. So now we have this whole area as one vapor barrier, which is brilliant. You'll never get that if you use dry core. Traditionally, when you're laying down flooring, you'd use a square like this, measuring tape, and you're basically working off of whatever is pre-existing. Now, we all know we never find anything square in a house. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use the laser level techniques. And as you can see, I got it lined up right now. And this line here represents a straight line from one steel post to the other. And we're gonna use this to establish our square for the entire project. This way, we're gonna build a wall off of each of these areas. And we're gonna start everything off square on that line, because when you're building, if you have one thing that's always going to be straight and square and everything's built off of it, the rest of the project moves so much faster. What we've done is we've marked our laser line and our laser line is going from post to post, and it's off this point here. So we cut our plywood for our end wall to fit our frame for the door plus 3 inches. And then we've also cut our plywood plus, right here, at a little extra 1/2 inch. That's because when I put these doors in, the door will go here, it'll be hinged open, and when it's closed, the middle of my door will be over the transition of the one flooring to the next. We're gonna go from laminate to tile. So by doing this in advance, it just makes my life easier all the way around. One, 2, and then 3, because it's so we're done drilling a few holes just to do a little demonstration for you how we secure this to the floor. That's an SDS machine. It's awesome. It's a really good hammer drill. You can see there wasn't a whole lot of effort going in. Didn't have to put his body weight behind it. If you have one of these drills, you can actually switch this gear over to hammer. It will work. It'll take 5 times as long. It'll get the job done. But if you're doing a big space like this and you don't own one like this, go to the store and rent it. 25 bucks for the day. Definitely worth the investment. We're using Tapcon screws, coated screw, won't rust. Pulling everything nice and tight. Even though we've pulled it tight, we're maintaining our airspace underneath the plywood. It doesn't have to be a lot, because any air that's moving will take any moisture that could possibly get underneath this floor someday, and it'll transfer that all through the house, and it'll stay dry forever, and you'll never have a moisture mildew kind of problem. So you can see, so the system works great. We need about 6 or 8 screws for every sheet of plywood. Because it's tongue and groove, if I put a screw within a foot of that joint, I'm also compressing the other sheet. So you don't have to go a lot of overkill. Just make sure that when you're walking around, you got rid of the spongy spots. If you need to put a few extra screws somewhere, that's fine. Also, while you're drilling, you might notice where you are, you might have softer concrete, and depending on the drill that you use, when you're drilling your hole, if your screws aren't grabbing, then just make one little change. Drill straight through, don't clean the hole as you go. Sometimes the concrete can be a little bit too soft, so if you just push down and leave all that dirt in the hole, then you'll have something there to bind that screw to the hole and it won't be lifting out on you. Now we're going to discuss how to frame your basement. Now there's a lot of different situations going on downstairs. So you've got, depending where you live, where we are, we're all concrete basement floors and then wood frame construction. Sometimes we have walls that have got concrete and then wood combinations. There's always different building materials. Here we've got steel structure as well. So we have to be able to tie into that. So we have wood ceiling, we have steel frame, we have concrete floors. Some places we have our subfloor that we built. And once that's anchored to the floor, it's really simple. You can do a platform wall, which is basically, you just lay the boards down, measure, cut, screw it together, nail it together, stand it up, level it, square it, boom, stick it in place. The other option is you're going right on the concrete. Now, if you're going right on concrete, like in our district, building code requires we have a vapor barrier between the wood and the concrete so that it's not wicking the moisture out of the concrete. That's important. It will prevent premature rot. You don't want to build something that only lasts 5 years when it can last for 40. So, we have regular wood. And when it comes in contact with concrete, it will rot early. Wood is where you find the mold in your house. It's already in the wood. Moldiest place on earth is the forest. What we're trying to do is make sure that the moisture content in our wood never gets above to a point where the mold starts to grow. So putting this in contact with concrete will cause it to go moldy. In our district, we are allowed to use a pressure treated lumber. And that's this stuff here. This is a sienna brown, it's not green. That's fine, it's the same stuff, different color. And we can go directly on the concrete with this, with no plastic, no sill gasket, no wraps. We can just screw it right to the concrete floor. And we can do this in 2 ways. We can put it down first with our laser level, put a bottom plate and a top plate on the ceiling, and we can balloon frame in place. Because a lot of cases when you pour concrete, your floors are going all over the place for height. Or we can do it platform construction as well. Put the bottom plate on, nail it together, stand it up. I generally like to do platform construction, keep all my framing about a 1/2 inch shorter than my ceiling, and then we just shim and screw and nail in place as we need it. So we're going to cover both in this scenario. We're going to go on top of our wood with a platform made of regular wood, and then we're going to go on top of the concrete using one of these, and we'll try a couple of different framing techniques to kind of cover the bases. There's a lot of ways to do it right. It's got to find what works best for you. So this is a separation wall for our living room to a storage area. It's our mechanical room. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna do a platform frame, all spruce lumber. Don't need anything special. Because we have our subfloor with our vapor barrier and our airspace underneath, this construction I consider to be a 40-year build. This wall is gonna be here years and years after anybody has bought and sold a few times. And what we do is we're gonna build it, stick it up in our hole, then we're gonna use these bolts here. These are awesome. We're gonna pre-drill into the steel. We're gonna attach our frame to the steel with screws instead of just glue or maybe some explosive ramset nails. Hold it flush. Make sure your wood's not twisted. You buy this hammer with this claw, and if your wood is twisted, you can sit on the wood and you can manipulate the wood even if you're working alone. That's why I bought it, because I find myself needing a second pair of hands sometimes in different situations. There we go. Now the way that we're going to operate this for leveling, this is really simple. Gord's like the king of lasers. So he likes to build lasers, and I love the system because he sets up a level line top and bottom. You just can't screw up. So all we got to do is we know our top plate's going to go level off of this because that's where the laser line is hitting. Right? Sweet. Done. We got a wall. All right, so the way we're gonna fasten this to the steel, and you really have two options. You can use like a Remington impact nailer, but if you make a mess there, then you gotta fight to pull it back out. This is a little simpler. We just pre-drill a hole, and then we're gonna set the self-tapping screw right into the steel. Done. All right, there we go. Done and done. We're gonna build this wall right in front of the steel. We're gonna go with the top and bottom plate. We'll cut a little bit out for the door after we're done. But first, we're just gonna build this into the wall so that we can put our, screw our wall into it. This becomes our drywall backing as well. We have to be careful because although these posts look like they're in the same spot, they're not square to the wall that we started with. Remember, we put down our subfloor, we made this our straight line. So this is carrying this post, this is carrying a different part of the structure. And so as a result, they're out about an inch. So we're gonna build a door in front of it instead of between it. We're coming up to the steel, which is our lowest point. So all of our measurements were based on the lowest point, so it makes it easy for us. And we're just gonna nail all this in now. I'm going to do a 32-inch door. And this will be our header. And we're just stick framing this in because it's easier at this point. Oh yeah, baby. This is going to be lots of love.
Yeah, but you're...
I'll hold it.
You're going to hold that? That's what you call it, cross. No hardware needed.
Keep this bad boy from moving around on us. And since we're using our laser level, we don't have to stop and check for level and square continually because we already know we are. Right there. So now that we got basically our picture frame or our outside frame of this wall all taken care of, this will anchor it. Now it's not going anywhere. Gord's cutting my kings and jacks for the door. That's fancy carpenter talk for a piece of wood that goes from the bottom plate to the top plate. It's a king. And the jack is just a little bit smaller. It goes to the top of the header. We're gonna get those nailed in. We'll probably put it flush off of here. The door is gonna swing out and then it'll come over to whatever, what are we doing? 35-inch hole for a 32-inch door. That leaves you enough room with a 35-inch gap. You have a 32-inch door, 5/8 jam each side, a little bit of space, some shims. It's a little bit of, give you some wiggle room in case you didn't do it as square as you probably should have. It's just good practice to get into. So I'm gonna just line these up so that I'm not wasting space for my door. Now, just a little note, when you're doing something like this, leave your wood sticking out over the top of your plate when you're screwing an angle a little bit. When the head of that screw hits the wood, it'll start pulling it in nice and tight. You can line it up flush. Bam. I've got the line for the laser level. There we go. Because now I'm going to stand in front of my laser. I need to see what the heck I'm doing, right? Again, pull it off the wall a little bit. Once you've got contact, get your hand out of the way or you're gonna tighten it right in and pinch your face. Done. Beautiful. Okay. When you use a laser level, you don't have to fuss around until you hit the edge. Just gotta measure off the line. 1 inch off the line. Okay, toss that sucker in. So what we did is we have a 34-inch gap, plus the jacks is 3-inch, makes a 37-inch header. So if we've got the bottom level and square and we just put the jack in place, that should be on our laser mark. Bam, perfect. There you go. Anything you want to do with that is working fine. Nice. Get a couple through. Hello. We'll go through the process of how to build a wall in concrete. So we have our pressure treated plate for the floor, our spruce plate for the top. The top plate is going to be interrupted with some plumbing. So what we did is we measured off our footprint for the bottom, cut another piece a little bit shorter so we have room to stick it in. We've marked our boards, so we know where our studs are going to go. Okay, just use a speed square, measure it off and mark it. Now we're going to put this on the floor. We've got our laser level lined up, so we can mark all of our dimensions here. It's important that this is right on the money. Put your hand there, you can check your line, because when we go to put the top plate in, we're going to go off the laser level line on the ceiling. Just screw that in real quick, then we just cut and measure, and we just stick frame in the wall. So we've used a square here to find out where we're coming off this wall. It's nice to have things square and level. Now what we got to do, grab our gun. Jeffrey's got a gun. So we just take our screw, just like we did with the plywood for the floor, and drive that into the concrete. That's how we attach it to the ground. We'll do one of these every couple of feet on the plate, screw in the top, and then all we have to do is cut and measure the sticks. Again, make sure they're level on their marks, and you're gonna have a wall. Mark the wood where the laser is. So now we got the ceiling marked with where the header goes. Is we're gonna just pass this across in front of the laser underneath, up at the ceiling, put this edge of the board on that laser mark, and that'll be dead level with the floor plate, with the ceiling plate. Put it on the pencil lines that we've marked earlier.
Get your hand
And I can put some weight on that for you. Because I'm short, I'm only 5'10" and a half. Goliath over here. Ready? I'm on the money. Ooh. Good? Not bad, eh? For a guy with a hammer? So now we're just gonna mark this off. 92 1/4. Now, don't forget, the reason we can do it this way is because the plate is pressure-treated lumber, and in our jurisdiction satisfies the code for having something that's not going to rot in contact with the floor. We're just lining everything up with the marks that we made on the 2x4s before we installed the top and bottom plate. And as a result, I don't need to worry about using screws. I can just use nails all day long. So just to recap, when we're framing, we got a couple of rules, right? We want level, we want square. So we got a laser level. When you're involved in laser level in your building technique, it saves you a lot of time. You don't have to stand around with a stick level. No matter how lovely that bubble is sitting, it's never as exact as using a laser. So this is a great way to work by yourself. If you are working by yourself, it's your second pair of hands. Now all you've got to do is continue to build these individual walls, and where they meet up, you know, you just have to tie them together in the corners, keeping everything flush, straightening out any warped wood, back framing so that all your drywall has something to screw to. And so when you're finished your room, just stop and think, how am I going to install my drywall? Do I have all the lumber I need? And before you walk away, just back frame, make sure that everything is ready to go to the next step. There's nothing more maddening than go to install some drywall and you have nowhere to screw the drywall to. Anyway, if you like this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're going to show you all the steps in the basement, how to drywall it, how to tile it, how to finish it, all the hanging the doors and the carpentry, and most importantly, the look on someone's face when they walk downstairs and see the perfect finished job. So today we're going to be installing the new Renovate Pro line shower valve. And this bad boy here, it's a new product on the market, the new Pro Series. This is a mixing valve, hot, cold, and then one outlet, and then the second outlet. Now, oddly enough, this one comes with its a 3/4 inch line for crimping, or it's a 1/2 inch piece of male copper here, so that you could just put copper line right over top and extend down to a tub, or you can add that little stopper there with solder. The other option you might want to try is a shark bite, but on further inspection we found that when you compress that on there as hard as it can go, it doesn't allow for the interior of that valve to actually work, and that pops off without any. Don't use the shark bite on this valve. There's just not quite enough room. Note to Renovate Pro, if you want to make a modification so that this valve stem is a little bit longer, then we could use our shark bite. In this situation, the back of this wall is a storage room. We'd have access to it. That'd be a perfectly legitimate installation. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to open up this valve. And this is just a temporary thing here. We're going to take that out because it's got a rubber gasket on it, and we don't want to overheat it. So we're going to actually solder on our 1/2 inch copper cap. Okay, and so this is how we're going to do it. We're going to do that first before we get into any of the construction, because we want to give this time to cool off again before we handle it. Now, at the hardware store, you can buy a little soldering kit for dummies. It's pretty new stuff. Comes with solder. It comes with flux. Okay, so we're going to just light up our torch. Really simple. You'll hear the gas out of flame. All right, so here we go. So what I do is I just set my torch on the ground. We're on concrete. If you're over top of any other kind of flooring, put some protection down. When the solder drips out, it's actually quite hot and it can burn your flooring. So we're going to scratch out the inside of our cap, just to create some grooves there where my solder can sit in. And I got some flux paste. We're gonna just wipe that up. And that acid basically sets up that copper. So it's nice and clean. So we're gonna just heat where we want the solder to go. So we don't want to heat that part, we want to heat over here, because that's where we want the solder to go. So we'll put that in the flame. Now, this gas in this system, it's a little slower than a MPS gas or a plumber's torch, and acetylene torch. We want to heat the copper to the point where we heat the copper and the brass. When the brass is hot enough over here that the solder melts, oh, there it goes. Starting to suck it up. And now I'm just going to push my solder rod right in the side. And when there's enough left over that it falls out. Now we're done. We'll just give it a bit of a wipe. There we go. So when I'm doing a job like this, I like to think ahead of myself, and I set up, I know I have my water lines coming down. My center line is going to be here. It's really tight to bring a water line down and join it over. So I'm going to drill a hole, bring the water from this side. So I'll just lay out my fittings, make sure I got everything I need before I get started. You have to pay attention here because you need something to mount this diverter on. This valve body needs something. Now, so the middle of this plastic line, which is basically, it tells you anywhere here, okay, that's where your wall needs to finish. So I'm going to set this back 3 inches, 2.5 inches plus my wall board, and I'll be at 3 inches finished, plus tile. I'll be great. The way you set this is you pretend you're standing in your shower and you just go grab it. Boom, this high, okay? And we're gonna go back 2.5 inches with my lumber. At 38. So we're just setting up our 2x4 in the wall. Now you want it to be nice and sturdy so it's not going to twist. You don't want to have your valve body moving around inside the wall. Mark our center line for our valve body, right there. Okay, so that's the center line for my valve body. All right. So we're going to hold this up on that center line. That's where we're going to mount it. There's my mounting screws right there and there. And this is where I need my hole for my water supply. Okay. I would use this bit here, it's 3/4, it's plenty big enough. But because it's so close and so tight, I'm gonna give myself a little extra wiggle room. Using this self-feeding auger bit. So really simple, guys. We're gonna put our copper ring on the pipe. And it's nice, we got this color-coded PEX line here. We're gonna go 1/4 inch up. And this is this wonderful little tool. Now, you pull these back and it opens it right up. Okay, and then it's a crimper as well. So once we got the crimper on position, we'll turn the fitting and then squeeze. Now there's a position of this handle that like really stiff, and then once you get past the point of where it needs to be, it just collapses on you. So again, we can take that off. Has this wonderful little plate here. And it says go or no go. It has the different dimensions, 3/8, 3/4. We're using 1/2 inch. So we're gonna just see if that fits. Perfect, you see? Neat, eh? That's how you measure. It's a little gauge to measure that your crimp is the right size. Awesome. Give ourselves that 1/4 inch. Okay, and crimp. Quick double check, and good to go. Okay, so now we got that one set up. Here we go. So now we have lots of line to play with, and we're gonna cut it On the short side first. Get that ring installed. And then we'll make this one a little bit shorter. Here we go. Put in our ring. Personally, I find it easier to connect my plumbing before I mount it. Again, come by, check your fitting with your gauges, make sure it goes on nice. Okay, I'm going to install this supply line. For all these guys on YouTube who are upset about the O-rings that I used before, this system, I mean, yeah, great. It seems like it works great, has a nice compression, but this is a two-hand operation. And these rings slide up and down off the pecs way too easily, so you almost need a third hand to operate this thing. So this isn't just a simple shower valve. So it's not a valve with a shower head. What we're putting on here is an adjustable slide bar. So we're gonna have our hose attached to the shower head, which releases off the slide bar, comes down under and over, attaches to this drop ear here. So now we gotta get our water supply from here through the other side of the wood and then down to this location. I usually like to have it, you know, somewhere close so that it hangs nice. Not a real big issue, so we got to drill another hole. There we go. There we go. Okay. Now, using this testing gauge might seem a little monotonous, but this is a great way to find out if you missed locking one of your joints. So I got a few flooring screws here. I'm going to use that to mount my drop ear. They're a lot stronger than drywall screws. And yet, they don't stick out the other side and cause any friction with my line. When you're buying a system like a Rebuild Pro, a lot of times you'll get the rough-in or the valve body and then a trim kit separate. If you buy from the building stores, you'll get it all in the same box. The rough-in valve comes with this temporary plug, very similar to a Delta system. And if you don't have the finished kit when you install this and you put it together, this is a great temporary fix, right? You screw that on, now you're watertight, you can turn the pressure on. But now they're sharing that area with the hot and the cold water line, and the hot water will win. So that heat will travel back up the cold water line and presumably over to the toilet and put hot water in your toilet. Then the toilet starts to sweat, something fierce, and then your client calls you up and says, how come my toilet is making water all over the floor? Get the trim kit at the same time and install the finish valve right away. When you're done your entire job, you might want to open it up again and flush it just to make sure there's no debris in the line so it's operating properly. What we're going to do is just check the paperwork real quick. All right, that was warranty. Finish valve, yes, it calls for a 2 installation, okay. One just slides over the other, blah, 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 blah. Good. All right, now I'm not guessing. It's pretty straightforward actually, but I just don't want to guess. Okay, lines up like that, and this lines up like that. These two holes there. Okay, this says you do finger tight and then a quarter turn with a wrench. Meet the wrench. Now all that's left to do is to pressurize the lines, make sure it's not dripping, and we can complete our wall installation and our tiling, and then we'll come back and put the trims on at the end of the day. So when we're doing a basement renovation, we want to add a lot of heat to the floor. And the secret here is this. When you have your rough-in basement done by a builder, they're going to drop in, there's a code requirement, so many square feet for every heat run, and they'll throw them into the ceiling, and they'll blow hot air into the ceiling, and it'll make it about halfway down, and then it'll start rising back up again. So what happens is when you're sitting there watching TV, your heart is beneath that level of heat. So it's actually in about 10 degrees, which is what the temperature around a basement is in our area. If you're only sitting in 10 degrees, you're gonna get hypothermic. That's why you need a blanket. So what we do is we wanna tap into the side of our heat runs. We wanna bring a couple of extra lines down right near the floor, and we wanna reduce the size of the ducting from a 5 to a 4 inch, and that increases pressure, blows the hot air across the floor, and now we're heating the room from the ground up and not just from the ceiling. So you're gonna need to add a couple of runs to the room. You are heating a space that was never heated before to that degree. So you're not gonna disrupt the balance in the home. You're just gonna take the heat level from around the ceiling, and we're gonna be bringing that heat level down closer to the floor. So the way we do this, and we're lucky because in residential ducting, the metal's pretty thin. All you do is you take your knife, let me get up here and show you, and you cut a hole. The reason I'm showing you this technique is because a lot of people don't have the proper cutting tools for bringing in ductwork, and I get that. So this works really great. It's a nice little cheat. So what we have here is a 5-inch side takeoff, and it has an adhesive gasket on it. It basically sticks right to the ductwork. So we just want to make sure that we're cutting our hole big enough that we're opening up the back end space that's on here. And we're just gonna eyeball that line to right there. And we'll keep cutting. Once you have your hole, all you have to do is remove the plastic gasket that exposes the adhesive. All right, now once you have that pressed onto the ductwork over the hole, you get a couple of these little number 8 screws, and you just wanna screw that together just for good measure. You don't want to trust an adhesive long term, but it's handy for working on your own to have that on there because you don't need a second pair of hands holding that in place. There we go. We just open the damper, and now we're good to go. All right, so here we are. We're going to just finish off one of our heat runs, demonstrate the whole system. The idea being, we wanted this to be blowing across the floor. You can set the height wherever you like it. I've got this set so that after my flooring and my baseboard are in, I still have a few inches there of space. I don't want my heat run sitting right on the baseboard, just in case that the measurement's a little bit off. I like to have a little bit of mercy there. So I have a 4x10 boot with a 4-inch collar. I've taken this piece of pipe and linked it together. I'm just gonna stick it in here. This is probably about the easiest production that you're gonna get. So sooner or later while you're doing your ductwork, you're gonna run into this issue. The ductwork, when it comes pre-cut, has one smooth edge and one corrugated edge, we'll call it. And sooner or later, you're gonna have to put it on something like this. And we're gonna use this to go from 5 to 4 inch to build pressure up. But you can see it doesn't fit. Now, this is gonna be one of these situations where you're gonna wanna go to the store. You're gonna wanna have the right tool for the job. Don't be one of those guys that comes over with a pair of snips and cuts all of this into fins and then kind of bends them together. That's just ridiculous, and it's a good way to get hurt. This tool here it's a crimper. And all you do, it's slow and monotonous, is you go around the outside of the pipe, crimping the pipe, and basically you're taking whatever that diameter is and you're forcing it in and out on the crimps to create a new diameter of pipe so that it fits inside the next fitting. There's no real skill involved in this, just patience. There we go. Now we take this. Perfect. So now that we have our extension up into the ceiling area, all we have left now is put some 5-inch pipe from this reducer over to my side takeoff. In order to do that, I need a piece of pipe here and I need an angle, so a 90-degree angle, and then another length of pipe. So there are 2 ways to cut the pipe that comes from the factory. We can use a regular pair of snips and we can cut around. And so we're gonna do that to demonstrate here. I just need like a 6-inch piece. What I like to do here is I just like use a black marker. Mark both sides that I'm cutting. And I reach to the back and I mark the middle and the back of the duct. That way, when I'm cutting here, and remember, this doesn't have to be perfect. We're gonna snap it together. We're gonna end up dimpling both ends on this one, just so that's out of the way. There we go. Now, this stuff is sharp. You could wear gloves if you're not comfortable working with sharp metal. Here we go. So now we just fold this together. It's like tongue and groove. Force that in, make like a heart shape, and then snap it together to make a round. Now it's locked in, and we're gonna dimple our other end. Max, we should be playing some really good music right about now. Maybe you can add it in later. Maybe elevator music. You know, the kind in like one of those thriller movies where the guy's in the elevator and he's on the way to go kill somebody and all you hear is do, 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 do. All right, here we go. We'll get that piece in, ba-boom. Now, we have a 5-inch elbow. And the way you make 90 degrees is you have a wide end and a short end on every one of these sections. You just connect all the dots. So all the short pieces go together. It's like a little puzzle. Be really careful, don't reach in and turn it around. There's a little metal joint on every one of these rings, and as your finger goes by, it'll just rip it right open. So if you're gonna grab, just pinch the ends or hold the outside. Again, wear gloves if you're not used to doing this and you're not comfortable. Bam, 90 degrees. Now we can put that up here over top of the dimple, facing in the right direction. We can throw in a couple of screws now just to make sure this assembly doesn't come apart. Now I'm using a really good little self-tapping screw for ductwork, which is kind of handy because it digs in really good. For the next piece of pipe, we want to measure from here, where the collar is, to here, where the collar is. And because it's already corrugated on both sides, we don't have to use those fancy scissors again. So we stick out our measuring tape from where we want to go to where we want to go. And I'm getting a reading of about 15 inches. Just for fun, we're going to create this pipe first. And let's go all the way down. I'm going to show you another tool you can add to your arsenal. And this looks like another pair of snips, but it's not. It's really cool. It has 2 blades in the middle, and it actually is used for cutting in a ductwork that's pre-existing. So there's more than one application. I'm just going to get down on the ground and I'll show you how this works. First we stab it, and then you start snipping. Now, this is not designed to be really quick. You only get about 1 inch for every snip. But you can see, we're actually cutting a strip about 1/4 inch wide right out of the duct. Now this is actually kind of handy because there is no point that your hands get anywhere near the sharp metal. So let's say you wanted to put a trap door or add something into existing ductwork. This is a great way to get in. You can also use this when you're doing your side takeoff. What we're gonna do is we're gonna get it on one side first, and you just bend the metal around to help it shape around the fins. There we go. And our 5-inch is just not small enough. When you cut into the metal, there's just all these shards and everything else. So instead of trying to clean up the cut metal, we're just gonna recrimp with these bad boys because they make the hole smaller than it does from the factory crimp. All right, done. Get a couple screws in here so it doesn't cause you any grief down the road. Generally speaking, I like 2 is plenty. There we go. This week's video, we're gonna focus in on a couple of different techniques for doing bulkheads. One of them involves a laser, which you may or may not have. I highly recommend getting one if you're doing a basement renovation. 150 bucks goes a long way to making things look perfect. The other technique is just a little bit of common sense. Let me show you how to use just leveling. Okay, so over here by the door, we're gonna have a bulkhead. We've got to cover up some steel, all right? Now, this is kind of cool because you can go out and buy a piece of lumber that basically fits inside the hole. Now, it doesn't fit perfect. It'll have the tendency of falling on your head. But what you can do is you can wedge it in. So, above the door over here, this 2x4 represents the bottom part of our bulkhead. It is sitting at the same height as this steel is off the floor. Okay, so what I wanted to do is, if I hang drywall from here to over the bulkhead, it's too big a space. I need to have another piece of wood coming down the middle. Now you can buy a 12-foot 2x4 if you like, but generally in my experience, 12-foot 2x4s are never straight, and we're only going to be supporting it in the middle. So what we're gonna do, we're going to stick our 2x4 on top of here. Now here's the idea. Bring it up to speed. I want to have this 2x4 wedged in all the way across, level on each side, so that when I put my 2x4 from the outside edges, I just stick them up in the middle like a sandwich. This is actually quite simple to do. And we're going to just throw in a screw up here. Okay, so here's my leveling system. 2x4. Shh, don't tell, it's not a level. What I can do is I just tap this up till my 2x4 is flush with my metal. So now I'm sitting at the same height on both sides. And I'm gonna put my mark there. Now this system you can do on your own. We're gonna just put a screw in. It may or may not move around when you do this. So now you just give it a little bit of a tap till it's beneath your mark. Set your screw. Now we're gonna just tighten the screw, and the head on an angle is gonna lift the board up until the mark shows like it was before. Perfect. Really need a new drill. All right, now I built both sides of this little area here exactly the same. So they both have a 2x4 flush up against the beam, that's level and square. So now I can add my extra support for my drywall. And before I put that in, I added the screws, right? If you're working alone, sometimes pre-doing the screw that's your second pair of hands. So now we're just gonna get this up, eyeball in the middle, put the screw where I need to, and drive it home. Here we go, we lift it up, level, square, and flush, and tie them together. Then we're just gonna throw a couple more screws in here for good measure. One of the cool features here is if it's not all level and square, when you lift these up tight together, they won't be flush. They'll scissor. So that's another way that you can tell if your stuff is being built straight. So now we just want to anchor this down. We don't want it floating. because I knew there's a 2x4 in that wall behind the drywall. I was able to cheat. Okay, each screw carries about 80 pounds. So I've got my beams laminated together here. They're just 2x4s. It's not really a beam. So I got 4 screws holding them together. I got 2 screws up here, 1 on each end. So if I built this right, it should carry my weight. Yep. So we built this more structural. I mean, you could hang a jolly jumper or something on this, no problem. But all we're gonna carry is the weight of ultralight drywall. So this will last 1,000 years. So here we are, we're using the DeWalt laser to connect the dots. What I've done is I've measured off my steel beam. The same measurement here at the other end of the room. And I put a mark on the ceiling and I put a mark on the wall. So this laser, self-leveling, and I just move it around until I connect the line up there with the dot on the wall, the other end. Beautiful. Now I've got a laser line all across my room. So all I have to do is transfer that information from the red line onto the ceiling. So I just use the ladder, and everywhere my red line hits the wood, I make a black mark. There we go. And this will represent, my 2x4 will be here, and then my bulkhead will be about here. What I'm using is I'm using a 2x4, which is never perfectly straight. You could use metal if you felt so inclined, but I'm offsetting my 7/16 plywood that I pre-cut at the hardware store today. They have a great saw that cuts it all exactly the same. So every one of these is exactly 9 3/4, which is the same depth as the bottom of my steel beam. So once I've built this box, I can actually run my track across wood to steel to wood again, and that'll support all the weight of my bulkhead. So we're just gonna use drywall screws to connect all this. Again, we're not hanging anything off of this bulkhead except for the drywall. So we don't need a whole lot of strength going on, but we'll put a screw every 12 to 16 inches just for posterity. Now, one of the benefits of working in these new homes, so you can see that the floor joist package is actually, it's an engineered lumber. So again, it's like an aspenite capped with 2x3s, lots of adhesive. And when they put those packages down from steel to an exterior wall, it is really flat. We don't have a lot of movement on there like it's a traditional house that's all done in wood because the crown is up and down and all over the place. Here is nice and flat, so we really have an advantage. So because I'm working alone, I'm gonna put a screw in about the middle, and I'm gonna start there we go. I'm gonna start hanging my bulkhead in the middle of the room. It's a lot easier for me to add on once I have the first piece up. So I take my screw and I'm just looking for the joist line. X marks the spot. I'll use a ladder. Okay, so my goal here is basically to line this up. You'll see, here's my laser line, right on the edge of my wood. And so I'm going to just get this screw in first. I'm not going to tighten it up too much yet. So now I'm going to get this over here, get it right on the laser line. Boom. Oh. Okay, so now I've got it up on my laser mark. I'm going to go right here. And screw that one in there. Okay. I can throw in the rest of my screws. You can pre-assemble the bulkhead like before, or you can just take any 2x4, start a screw in the middle, put it up on your laser line. Now, because I'm overlapping, my 2x4s don't have to be in touch with each other. It's not necessary, because my laser line already tells me what's straight. Here we go. So now I don't have to connect my dots with my lumber because my plywood is going to be doing that for me. So I just want to get this on my laser line mark. So I just want to check each end of the 2x4, make sure that it's in the right spot. And we're good. Right there. Make sure there's nothing above it, wiring or plumbing, before you drive a screw. That's a mistake you'll only make once. Okay, if you put all your 2x4s up first, then you can come back with the plywood and hang your plywood. Preset your screw. 2x4 is 1.5 inches, so you've got lots of room to play here. Connect all your dots here. That's not going anywhere. So once you got all your plywood screwed on, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be just screwing this wood to the bottom edge of the plywood, okay, with the screws all down the run. And then we have a mounting surface for our track. Now we're just using a metal track. It's got a shape to it, so it'll carry a lot of weight. Run it across to the other side of the room, and then we have something to screw a drywall to. But that is the basics of how to build a bulkhead. Okay, so we are in the basement bathroom now. We've got a drop ceiling going on, and our client bought this house 3 years ago and knew that they were going to convert a bathroom down here. So in their scope of work for the builder, they had them add a exhaust vent in the foundation wall. Not exactly sure why. It's not very tricky to start from scratch, but they did. So now we got to find it. What we did is we just measured off from the edge of a window, inside and outside. So we know it's up in this area here. So we're gonna do a little exploratory surgery. Oh yeah, you can feel the cold air. There we go. Okay. So they got a 4-inch line coming through here, and cold air is just a-blowing. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pull some staples out of the electrical here, lift all this wiring out of the way, cut a hole in this. Now, it's not against code to drill holes in this aspenite. Now 4 inches is a pretty significant hole, but I would rather open up a 4-inch hole here and run my exhaust through that, just because we're so close to the outside wall. And these joists are, really, I've got extra joists up here. I'm not even worried about it. Now we can get this up here like this. I'll be out of the way. So I'm gonna cut a rather large hole here, so I have room for my insulated duct line to get through. I'm gonna use this Diablo blade. Love the Diablo blades. Wow. This is a little bit awkward of a spot, but, and here. I know a lot of you are wondering, is it okay to cut through that? I'll let you little exercise. Find a spot in your house where you can put a 6-inch piece of 2x3, all right? And then set it over that gap. And then find out how much weight it takes to bend that 2x3 even an 1/8 of an inch. I bet you it'd be probably safe to say it'd be somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 to 2 tons to bend that 2x3 over a 6-inch gap. When we're doing structural lumber for decks, for instance, 2x6 will travel 5 feet. A 2x8 will travel about 7 feet. So I'm sure that a 2x3 can handle 6 inches. Like I said, the subfloor above goes to the outside joist to this joist as well. I don't have to be an engineer to know that this is not going to be a problem. Okay, so now we're going to install our insulated duct line. And they're all basically the same. It's just a accordion plastic. That little tape on the end will drive you crazy. Make sure you loosen that off. It restricts the size of the diameter of the pipe. So you want to pull this loose from the insulation for now. get this up into your cavity. We want to pull that through the hole. And then we're going to slide this over top of that duct extension that's coming from the outside. It's unfortunate, you got these tight spaces, you can't really work very well. So this crimping tool is going to make the diameter of that pipe smaller by forcing the amount of inches around that pipe into a smaller space by bending it in and out. All right, so now our insulated duct line will slide over top of that real easy. We're just going to make sure that our ring is opened up so it's nice and easy to work with. So I've got my gear clamp slid over my exhaust pipe now. So now I'm going to stick my exhaust pipe over top. There we go. That is so much easier now that it's all done up like that. I'll slide it down as far as I can. And then I'm going to try the impossible here. And I'm going to just tighten that on. Now if you're concerned at all about this slipping off, you can always wrap up some vapor barrier tape around a few times. Connect the plastic with the ducting. There we go. I've got the red and the blue tuck tape. The difference being this one's good in wet areas. So since it's better tape, we'll use it. In this environment, I would recommend just cutting small pieces of about 6 inches. Always fold over your tuck tape on the roll. It's hard to get going again once you lose the edge. So we'll get a couple of pieces of this on. Now, we'll pull this insulation over and through and encapsulate the rest of that duct line right up as far as we can. Okay. So now we've got a nice direct run through the outside. It's all sealed up, screwed in place. And now time to get the fan. So we're going to be installing today is the New Tone. It's a replacement fan, but you can use it in new construction just as well. This is kind of neat. They've finally caught a product that they can replace, that you can install with a hole in the ceiling that you've got left from your old fan. So literally we can install this like a replacement fan or as a new fan, which is awesome. This fan is an 80 CFM fan, 1.1 zone in the sound rating, which means basically if you're installing fans, the lower the numbers like golf, the better the score. It relates to how quiet the fan is. Now, there are other fans on the market that are quieter. But if you're around 1 zone, it's so quiet at that level, it's not going to be an issue. Always when you're installing something for the first time, check the installation guide. This also comes with a reducer to a 3-inch line if you have a really old bath line. A 3-inch duct exhaust will still be good enough for an 80 CFM fan, which basically, I should probably mention, look at that little template in here. If you want to put it on the drywall and cut your hole in advance, that's handy. 80 CFM is 80 cubic feet per minute. And what that basically means is you take the measurement of your space, your length, your width, and your height, and that gives you cubic feet of the bathroom. And what you want from a bathroom fan is to be able to clean it out in 5 minutes. And the reason 5 minutes is so important is because all of these little timers that are available on the market, the smallest level is 5 minutes. So if you have a shower in here and you want to hit the bathroom fan timer and you hit 5 minutes, it's the smallest one on the timer, you want to know that all the air in this room has been exchanged and removed so that all the moisture is out of this room inside that 5-minute period. So we're 7 by 7 by 7. We're under, we're under 400 cubic feet. And so 5 minutes at 80 is 400. So we're all good to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the fan from the housing. Should be this easy. There we go. That's a lot of weight, so it's just good to get that out of your way for now. Now, when you're working with these things, whenever you take a screw out of a fan or a hinge out of a door or a cover plate off of a hood fan, while the screw's in your hand, put it back where it belongs. You'll never lose it if you put it back in. This housing has a hole in it, so you can pull your ductwork through. And then once it's installed, you can then connect this to the ductwork and then push this back up into place, boom, boom. And that sounds like a really good idea. So we've snapped in our little plastic grommet here. All right, this is just a plastic connector from the electrical department. They snap in, you just push your wire through, and then that allows the electrician to come back at a later time and do what he's got to do. I like to leave the wire exposed a little bit for him, and that way he doesn't have to get in there and crimp it afterwards. So the idea here is you want to leave enough room for your exhaust to turn the corner. Throw in a couple mounting screws. I'm going to run my first sheet of drywall up to this point, right? And then I'll be able to tighten these screws right down onto that drywall joint, and that'll be perfect. The goal here is to try to have as straight a run as possible. Right, that looks good. And we have a little bit longer run than we want. So we're just going to slice through the insulation. So once you've exposed you need a pair of side cutters, wire cutters, any kind of snip actually will work. You got to cut that wire though, because that'll just keep on unraveling on you. And the same thing as we did at the other end. We just pull back the insulation, expose the ducting, bring that into the housing. All right, there we go. Now, this damper is going inside the fan. Position like this. There's a backdraft, it holds shut. If it's upside down, then it lets all the air in. You don't want that. So make sure you put these in right. There's different kinds and designs out there. This one is oval, so you gotta bend everything to make it work. And this, yeah, that'll work out awesome. Same process. Use your gear clamp on this end. Our exhaust is now over top of the boot. We got our gear clamp in place. We're just gonna tighten that up now. Cool thing about gear clamps is they work even on an oval assembly. So that is kind of fun. Now the reason there's an oval assembly on this fan is because it's slim kind of housing. It's designed to go into pretty much any space that you can find, which is really cool. And just to follow up, we're gonna again use this tuck tape that is really good in wet areas, just to help make sure that nothing's gonna want to slide off at a later date. All right. Push all that through that hole. There we go. Sometimes it's helpful to have a shorter bit. Now it's time to put our fan back in. So we're gonna pull these two screws out that we had put back in their mount. There we go. All done. Now, once the electrician has opened this up and connected the wires, then we just plug this back in and our exhaust is finished. The only other thing you might want to do is outside the housing, where the insulated line comes in contact with the fan. Just a nice little touch. Pull it up nice and tight against the fan, and then just start on top of the fan, come across the insulated housing, and then back over top of the fan again, just to help hold all that in position. There we go. Okay. Now I'm just installing a little bit of backing here. So just to recap on this video, it's a lot of work running a bathroom fan and doing it right. So first you got to get your hole outside, bring in your duct line, find a way to get your insulated exhaust line to that hole, connect it to your fan, connect your wiring, get the fan housing installed, and get all of that done so that you don't have too many bends in your housing. So you want to keep nice and efficient. If you have too many turns, your 80 CFM will quickly drop down to 50 or 60, and it's not going to perform well for you. So if you're a fan of our channel, please subscribe. I had to say it. All right, so the next thing we need to take care of when you're renovating your basement is the drywall. Time to close, tape, finish, sand, prime, paint. But all of these things we've put together in another how-to A to Z video just for drywall. It's comprehensive, it's over an hour, it's everything and all my tips and tricks. So what I'm gonna suggest is after this video is over, if you have some time and you wanna check it out, click the link to take you to that video, and then you can become a drywall master too. It's tile day. Welcome back to the basement job. We are taking a look at finishing all the flooring that's not getting laminate and it's not on a subfloor system. So because we have our subfloor system that you've probably seen previously, what we're doing here is we are recreating the same tile floor that's upstairs, and we're bringing it down here so that we have a nice constant flow through the house. You see the same flooring patterns emerging over and over again. It gives you the feeling that everything was pre-thought, right? It's very intentional. We didn't just go to the store and find something and slap it in the basement. So now this becomes an extension of the upstairs. But what we do have is a different elevation because we have subfloor and then on concrete. So what we've done is prepared this concrete in advance. We use the Eco Prime grip from MapHigh, and that's a brilliant little product. Basically what we have is raw concrete that hasn't been painted, except when they prime the basement originally, they use a spray machine, so there's spray powder everywhere. And that is going to interfere with our adhesion with our cement. So what I did is I used the Eco Prime grip, and then I've used the Protega underlayment. This is an uncoupling membrane. This is not a Dietrich product. This is red, not orange, so don't have to adjust the color on your screen. This one is what the world would call a knockoff. It hasn't been tested to the same degree for working in areas with deflection and that sort of thing. But for me, I'm comfortable saving a couple $100 using this here. It's on concrete. And when you're building on concrete, all you're really looking for is the elevation. I don't need a whole lot of performance from this product, and so I'm more than confident that it's going to work just fine. So we prime it, we put down the underlayment, now we're ready to tile. We did this yesterday. I don't like to tile right away because I seem to dent the cement as it's drying. So today what we have to do now is we have to measure this out. We got to map this out. You can't just start a project in the far corner and go left to right and fill it all in. You need to think ahead. Where are my grout lines going to be? What's the pattern I'm using? And where is the square versus non-square walls in the home? Remember, this is a modification to an existing space. So this used to be a wall, we removed it. This is existing from the builder. This is existing from the builder. And we just finished doing some measuring and found out they're not parallel. So it's very key now that we think about how we lay our tiles so that we don't overemphasize the fact that these are out of line. We don't want to have our tile finishing here with no grout line and then opening up to a grout line and going, wow, what a really nasty looking tile job. So keeping in mind that people are coming down the stairs, what's in their line of sight, what is the most common traffic flow, and then where do we want to have our grout lines and interrupt our grout lines, and how is it going to meet with the other flooring? All these things we got to take into consideration. So let's begin. So these are our tiles, they're 12 by 24. This is a porcelain. It's a Lapato, so it's not a flat, it's not a gloss. It's kind of like semi-gloss for paint. It has a little bit of texture in it, and it's really nice for floors, especially if you're going to be going in and out to the hot tub or coming out of a shower, because it will give you a little bit of grip. It's also very easy to clean. Now, the tile floor upstairs, which is what we're going to mimic so that we have the same continuity, is an 8-inch offset pattern, but it's not a brick pattern. This one is a little bit different. So I'm just going to lay this out real quick so that we can have a look as far as what this is going to look like as a finished product. All right, this is the offset that they're doing upstairs. Okay, so here's our pattern. This is an 8-inch offset, but this isn't a brick pattern. It doesn't keep stepping down away, it comes back again. So what we end up with is 2 grout lines and then 2 grout lines with a larger space in the middle. And this can be very beneficial for us. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our laser level that we've already established a line all the way down. And we're going to just have a quick look at what kind of offcuts we're going to get if we start in that particular spot. So here we're fine. It'd be nice if this was not more than half a tile. Yeah, 11 and a half, 11 and a half. That's good. So because this wall is going to give me half cuts, but it's not square, I'm going to just measure from both ends, make sure that I'm starting in a place where my offcuts I can use again and I'm not throwing tile away. But I like this pattern, I like where it's going down here. I'm not going to end up with little slivers against the wall. I might end up with something over here. Yeah, I'm going to end up with about a 3-inch piece there, and that's going to be fine. But that's out of the way. Now, if I do the same thing down here, because that's on my laser line, I can find my laser line, put my tape measure down, check my 2-foot tile, see where I end up. So there I hit the wall at 1 foot, there I'll hit the wall at 16 inch, and that will lead me right into my bathroom. Wow, that doesn't happen very often, but I think that's gonna work. All right, so here's the secret. When you're doing a tile job, first you want to identify where your grout lines are going to be, what the condition at the visible edges are going to be like, so you can adjust your main line off your laser. But secondly, you also got to consider where you want to finish up. So down at this end, we're finishing up in a door. It's a transition under door, so it doesn't matter the condition, it's going to the storeroom. Over here, we got an entrance to a bedroom door. It's secondary, it's out of the line of sight from the main living area. But over here is the main living area. The French door is leading into the great room. Now, we're going from one type of flooring to another, so we will have a cap transition, but we don't want to end up with a piece where we have like a 2 or 3 inch sliver there. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure off from over there, because I need to start way over here. This is a 2-day tile installation. So today I want to do all the floor, and then tomorrow I want to do the shower and the rest of the bathroom floor, but I need to have tile going into that room so I have something that I can stand on while I'm filling out the space. So my tile is really kind of odd. It's actually 11 and a half inches, including my grout line. So it's not a true 12 by 24. So I need to measure right from where I want to finish down to where I want to start. And then I can establish my line. Okay, so I come down here. There we go, there's 19 feet. I'm gonna make a mark. And I'm gonna do my math. So I have 19 feet minus ½ inch per tile, okay? So that's 19 tiles at a ½ inch. Half of 19 is, yep, 9.5. So minus 9.5 inches. So my mark minus 9.5 inches is where my tile will end. And then I can go back 11.5. This is where my first tile is gonna go. And now I'm gonna just get my square, bring it down here off the laser line, draw my mark, and then I can start tiling. Okay, so this is not too difficult, but a little paying attention going on here. We got our square, we got our laser line, we're gonna build the entire floor, and that is actually our grout line. So every tile that we have going down here, well, every other tile is gonna touch that line. So I'm measuring off, putting my square on that line with both my fingers. Perfect. And I have the other point here with my measurement that I put down just a minute ago. And I'm gonna just draw my line with my black marker. Make sure I am good to go. There we go, and that's where I'm starting. So just a quick lesson on how to mix your cement, but first, where to buy it. I use Mapei products because I go to a local wholesaler for tile and flooring products. The company name doesn't really matter at this point, but the point is this. My bag of cement. This is LFT, large format tile cement. And when I buy this bag, I believe it's like $16 or $17. If you went to the local hardware store to buy this bag, you're looking upwards of $35 to $40. Now to do this type of cement on that type of tile for 12 by 24, you're probably gonna get 60 or 70 square feet per bag. So in a project like this, I'm gonna go through 5 bags of cement. You can do the math. That is about $150 you're gonna save, and it's better in your pocket. Now, what you wanna do, start off by adding a little bit of water. And Ends up being about 20% water, give or take. That depends on the tile setter. Some people like more or less. This particular batch is a little warm. I only have access to it from the hot water overflow from the tank. So I'm gonna have issues with my cement drying quickly on me. So once I get going, I gotta move fast. Okay, good. So because it's warm water, I've got to work quick. I'm not going to make as much. I'm only going to make a half pail. I'm using a slow speed mixer. It doesn't rotate as fast as a lot of the other like VSR drills. And this is designed for cement and for mud mixing. So already I can tell it's going to be a little too stiff. You want to add water if you're going to add more at the very beginning of your mixing process. Once you're finished mixing, it needs to set for 10 minutes before you use it. If you add water during that time, you're destroying your cement. There we go. That's what I like to see. It's got some ridging, some peaking, it's holding its own shape, and yet it still looks nice and loose. Okay, so once again, for the DIYers out there, we're using a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch trowel. It works very good with the large format tile cement. And the idea is we want to fill up these holes that are in this in order to transfer the contact point from the stone right down into the concrete underneath. If you don't fill these, you'll have a bunch of air pockets and you run the risk of cracking your tile. And I use my trusty little cheapy tile cutter from building store. Always put a nice wheel on it and it works just fine. When you're installing this way, or on a 2-day tile install, I'll almost always just go for the square footage on the first day. So I'll do my square cuts. I won't even pull out my grinder. I won't do details around the doors and that sort of thing. I won't pull out the wet saw until the second day. I don't like to set it up and clean it up twice. So here we go. We're looking to fill up these squares. You've got to come at it from a couple of different directions. Make sure you don't bury your line. You can see you will end up going through a lot of cement. So what we're going to do, I'm going to just trowel this out real quick. And then I'm going to knock it all in the same direction so that when I'm putting my tile in, I have a nice consistent underlay there. Now, because it's a large format, I'm going to steal a little bit of cement, back butter my tile. And we're going to place this down on my line. Happens to be about there. And I'm going to check for my laser level. I'm a little too far over. Perfect. And a little bit of pressure. Slide it to my line. Now, in our last tile videos, people have commented, oh, you don't have enough adhesion. Anyway, so one of my viewers mentioned, why don't you lift the tile and show everybody? There you go. Industry standard for floors is 80%. This is about 97. I ought to be just fine. There we go, there's our cornerstone. Now all I gotta do is the same thing over and over and over again until the floor's done. Let's open up this box. They're a clip. Basically, it's the same science as all the clip systems. They break off. You just place them underneath. The idea here is you just get rid of the extra cement that's in the area because you don't want to have cement popping up between the joints. Now, some people use a margin trowel. I'm a little old school. I just like to have one tool in front of me all the time, so I use that trowel. Always visually inspect your corners. Make sure that things are good. Remove packaging like this. This is usually an installed with tiles that have some sort of a polished finish on it to protect it from scratching during shipping. Once again, I'm gonna back butter. I'm gonna lay that in position. Lay it about a quarter off, put some pressure and push back to collapse the ridges. Okay, nice. I'll go this way and this way. We'll go both directions just for the purpose of the camera. Now I usually try to put those wedges in with fingers first, but here's the basic idea. The clip goes over top. Here we go, sorry, I'm on backwards. And you just squeeze the wedge through the clip, causing compression, and it should create a nice flush surface. Approximately there. We got 8-inch offset. There we are. And pressure, and I will collapse my ridges. Now, the only thing I'm going to do differently here is I'm going to move my, and I use a different tile clip system. You see, this works pretty quick. Here we go. This is for everybody who's been sending me messages about my PPE. Gotta use eye protection. I got this from that crazy Russian hacker. I love his goggles. I thought I'd wear them. So for those of you who've never done this before, this is a continuous rim grinder. So if it touches you, it'll burn your finger. It won't cut your finger off, which is lovely. The idea here is stone is somewhat sensitive, especially when it's porcelain. And I know people get upset when I call it stone, but it's a bad habit. You want to cut all the way through on each end, and then you want to basically plunge cut here so that the weak spot is going in both directions. So that if it does break during cutting, the piece that you want to keep stays intact. Okay, so that's the secret. And then just finish the cut. Here we go, inside corner. Very important, make sure your clips are pushed all the way in, guys. Basically, that's it. That's in for the techniques. We're gonna scratch the corners. We're gonna fill in as much of this as we can without using any of the grinders so we can get a lot of square footage done today. This will allow us all the room we need to be able to walk around and finish the job tomorrow. So today will be about a half day. We'll put down 150 square feet or so. And come back tomorrow and finish this off. Max isn't available tomorrow, so you're gonna have to wait till the final reveal probably to see the tile job. Welcome, Jeff from Ottawa Design and Build here again. Today, gonna show you some tips and tricks on doing finished carpentry. For windows, what we have is we got a builder window with the builder jamb. This jamb came to the extent that that's what came with the window. They screwed it in, here you go, unfinished basement. Now it's up to you to finish it. So there's two options. One, we can rip out the jamb that's here, or we can just extend it. So what we're gonna do is just extend it. It's a little simpler production. We don't risk damaging the window. So just gotta start, we gotta clean off a little bit of this extra plastic out of our hair here. Make sure your site is clean, because what we're gonna do is we're gonna install a little bit more of the same 3/4 inch pine. All right, so as long as I can see what's existing, I'm gonna be comfortable that I can install the new one. We have to custom make 4 pieces of trim here, because you can't just buy this standard. You wanna finish right to the surface of the drywall. So what I do is I take something flat across the corner. I'm gonna measure and make a mark of that depth. And here we go. That is 3 3/4. Make your life simple, write it right on the frame. Okay, and that'll be the same mark for that depth on this piece of wood and this one. We're gonna take the same measurement here, and it is the same. And the reason we gotta do all 4 corners, because when the builder installs the window, they're in a hurry. And they're gonna just make sure it fits, it's in the relatively the right location. And a lot of guys, especially with basement windows, they put it on an angle so that it helps to drain the water. Don't ask me why. I think the windows are built to drain anyway. But if you get it on a twist, here you go, this one's 3 1/2. Or it's installed crooked this way, it's still gonna look fine from the outside, still gonna seal, it's gonna function properly, but you can't finish it by going to the store and just buying wood. And this one's 3 1/2. So reality, if it was all 3 1/2, I could just go buy a piece of 1x4. That's 3 1/2 inches. If I do that now, I'm gonna have this corner over here, I'm gonna have big gaps. It's gonna look like garbage. So what I do is I usually buy a bigger piece of wood, usually like a 1x8, and then I'll just rip all 4 pieces, nail it together, and then I'll have it perfect every time. So what we have here, we have our thickness of our wood. We also need to have the actual dimensions. So we'll take an outside dimension of the window, outside of that jamb to the outside of the jamb is 55 7/8. We're gonna add 1/8 for each side, 56 1/8. Okay, so that what we're gonna have is our pine is going to come just a little bit inside, and it leaves me a place to put caulking, because whenever you're ripping wood down and going from different dimension, you can't use the table saw guide. You're clear cutting by hand. So you're gonna need to add some caulking. So make your new window jamb just a little bit wider than what it is now. And they don't find that very easy. Here, that's an actual 23 1/2. So we're gonna go with by 23 and we'll go 5/8, because I wanna keep it flush as I can on the bottom. All right, so now we got our numbers. We're gonna go to the table saw. We're gonna cut all of this lumber down, and then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna assemble it for you so you can see how to build it and stick it in the hole. All right, so now we've got my lumber cut. I just wanted to show you what I've done is I've marked it all. So I got bottom, top, left and right side. So I'm going to build it like I'm outside the building looking in. Keep that factory clean edge down there. There's the top piece. Okay, right and left, very important. We get that proper. Put the rights and the lefts. Wow, that cuts so good. I can hardly tell which one is which. All right, here we go. And the reason we want to build it like this is because the floor is relatively flat. So all the factory edges will be flat, and that'll be the surface that's on the outside of the drywall where we put the casing. So that keeps all of these elements proper. You can see that when you table saw on an angle, freehand, it's not always perfect. Doesn't matter because we're gonna be caulking that joint anyway. So the most important element here is, what does this look like when the casing comes in contact? Square it off, nail all this together. Very important, by the way, when you're using this kind of nailer. I'm using a 2-inch nail. Don't have any fingers or anything within 2 inches of where you're nailing. These things have a tendency of having their own mind and can just fire off at will. You don't want to have a finger there when a nail pops through. Okay. So now we have this. We're just going to make sure that it's nice and square. Trace a mark. Now I'm going to measure for my casing. So I've got inside measurements is 22. I want about an 1/8 top and bottom. We're going to go 22.5. Now you want to add the thickness of your casing times 2. We're using 3.5-inch trim, which is beautiful. So that's 7, so that's 29.5 inches. And then we'll do the same for this side. Check the inside measurement, 54 and 7/8. Now when I'm taking that measurement, I'm adding a little bit, about an 1/8 on each side, so that my casing comes shy of the edge. Again, so that I've got a joint there that I can caulk, has a nice clean finish. Add the 7 inches again, so I'm up to 61 7/8. All right. I love using shims as a notepad. We'll go cut all 4 pieces of trim and come back and install it. Okay, so now we have all of our casings cut. We're gonna take our jam extension, flip it upside down, and we're gonna nail all this together now. So the reason I'm doing it this way is because walls are incredibly uneven. Even when you frame it yourself and do your own drywall, there's always little imperfections. So what I've found is, if I build something like this first, and then I install it, my joints are always perfect. So what I do is I put the glue on there. Oh, 1 second. Let me get a perfect joint first. Hit the perfect joint. Set it with a nail. All right. Now I always glue my joints first because wood does suffer the effects of expansion and contraction, especially in a window at the outside of the house. So if you put glue on, what you're doing is bonding all of that together so it grows and expands together, and you won't suffer all of that cracking that you usually get with window trim over time. And the reason I try to do this on top of the box is because I've had problems before where I've nailed it all together on against the subfloor, and like I talked about, those brad nails, they fire off in different directions. They go right into the floor and then you get stuck to the floor. Or the phone rings and somebody calls and hey, and then the window glues to the floor. Okay. Now I'm gonna put my window in position. Put my consistent gap. Each end. I'm going to start in this corner, and now to square off the frame underneath it. Tack it in. So traditionally with this kind of window installation, you build your jamb, you install the jamb, you shim around, you nail it all in place, then you add the casing. But the reason I like doing this is quick and simple. No one's ever going to be crawling out of this window. And so I'm just going to build up my shim pack now on each side. When I stick my window in place, it's going to sit on this. My gap should be perfect. And then I can just nail it all in place all at one time. Here we go. Let's see if we know what we're doing. Well, I'm pretty damn pleased with that, Max. I don't know about you. Using 2-inch nails, that fires right through the shims and into my 2x4 wall. So we're going to trim off that little bit of plastic that's sticking out. All you've got to do now is take your caulking gun, caulk your gap, fill your nail holes, caulk your edges, and then paint. I'm going to show a couple of tips now for how to install baseboard. If you're using wood, it's a quality product. It's going to see something like this, 3/4 inch thick. You need to know how to use your tools properly when you're working with stuff like this, or you're going to end up with a really bad looking job. When you buy economy trim, the really thin stuff, colonial, lots of molding, you can basically cut that square, stick it in a corner, put in a caulking line and paint and walk away. But when you're working with stuff like this, you really got two choices. You're going to have to either miter the corner, which is putting the 45-degree angles on, or you're going to have to pull out the coping saw and trace your line and cut it and then fit it over top of the design on the wood. I like to miter my corners and then still rely on some caulking. But I like to glue my wood corners together. Again, expansion, contraction. So I'm going to show you a couple tips when you're working with thick wood, because wood has a tendency to not be straight. So what I do, I take some scrap, throw it on the wall. Right away, that's what I'm building on. Whenever I'm working with wood like this, I want it the same thickness off the floor because the material's available. Nice and easy. I'm going to put the flooring down. I'm also going to have a base shoe that goes on, so I don't have to worry about the gap. And that gap is really convenient for me. It has a little bit of come and go with the bend in the wood. It's still going to look amazing. Keeps your baseboard. If you buy a 6-inch trim, you don't want to put in your floors and only have 5 inches left. So install it off the ground when you get started. Gives you room for your floor to expand and contract underneath that trim, and then you're not restricting, the flooring from causing buckling. So I'm gonna go take a measurement for the whole length of the wall right now. There we go. This wall is 118 1/4. I'm gonna cut it at 118 1/8 because no room is ever square, no corner is ever wonderful, and where I measure is beneath with a mud joint on that wall. So if I cut from drywall to drywall, it's gonna be too long and I'm gonna have to be jamming it in. Okay, so we're gonna adjust our saw just to carry the weight of that wood. We've got 118 1/4 was our actual measurement. I'm gonna be cutting the board down to 3/16 smaller than that to account for the mud that's built up in the corner, and that'll also give me the opportunity to make any adjustments that are necessary on the floor when I'm installing the corners. You're gonna see when I put this all together, cutting it small has an advantage. Okay. Now, I'm using a 10-inch compound miter saw. Not tall enough for me to cut this way, because my trim is actually higher than from the tip of the blade up to this arbor here. So I have to cut it on an angle. So my saw has an easy adjustment. Make sure your gate's out of the way, your saw can pass freely. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run it right down here to the end, keep it flush. So I already know that when my saw passes through the wood, it's gonna go into the hole in the saw. So I line my wood up right off the edge here, okay? And this is a great tip for people who are learning this for the first time. You'll see that there's a little bit of meat left, but now you know exactly where that blade's gonna cut. So we're gonna pull it forward just a little bit. Perfect. So once you're comfortable with your saw and where that blade's gonna go to, I know I'm going 1/8 past that line. I can just set it up. And I am right on the edge, perfect. Ready to install. So when you're putting this in, be careful. At this point, your walls are usually primed and ready for paint. You don't want to be putting holes everywhere. Okay, so here we go. Like I said, it's a little snug, even though I took 3/16 off. It's amazing how much mud builds up in those corners. There we go. So now you're set off the ground. Great for expansion, contraction of the flooring. When you're installing your outside corner now, take that little block, spin it around, picks up both corners. Okay? Always measure and check things first. That is beautiful. Now you can see that gap looks pretty good. But if I was putting a nail and put pressure, it's gonna open up the hole. So what I can do is I can put a shim in behind that, and then I can manipulate these baseboards just enough. If I want to have a little bit more manipulation, cut and break the shim, open up the gap, put the thick side down underneath. And that can give you even more ability to manipulate it. Now when I put that nail, it's not going to move, all right? Best part about that is, now you can open up this board. Again, use some glue on the corners. Okay, not too much, just enough to make contact. Get that shim where you want it. Find that happy place again. Perfect. Trim all that out of the way. So that's a process you're gonna need to use almost every corner, because every corner has the same phenomenon. You're gonna have two pieces of drywall meeting. If you build a room perfectly square, good for you, but then as soon as you put mud on the wall, you wreck that. So you're always gonna have this concave action in the corners. So having shims handy to nail your corners when you're using big fat trim like this will help guarantee your joints are always pretty. Glue them first because you can't get in there to nail them together. And then once you've attached this side using the same technique with the shim, all you do is just fill in the gaps and keep the baseboard straight, caulk it, and you're good to go. So a little tip with your pneumatic nailer, don't press too hard. It's gonna make a dent when the nail goes through. But if you press too hard, even the guide here is gonna put a hole in the wood. You end up filling 2 holes instead of 1. Just another quick tip when you're putting your baseboards on. I always like to do it when I've primed the wall before I've painted, because I want to be able to caulk this joint, and then I want my paint to be covering the caulking. First with the wall, and then cut clean with the finish paint. When you're nailing, when you have drywall surface, you can actually see your framework, because you're gonna have spots on the wall where the mud is over the screws, especially beside the electrical boxes. You know where your wood is. So you just line up your 16 on centers, and it pulls nice and tight. Again, when you get to the corner, feel free to nail that in. You manipulate the other side to close the gap the way you need to when you join that piece of wood. Hi, I'm Jeff from Ottawa Design and Build, and I'm here to give you a little tutorial on how to install laminate flooring. And we're talking about a medium density fiber or high density fiber laminate. Traditionally, this came out, it looked like a picture of 3 different pieces of wood. It's developed a lot over the years. And now we've got something that looks like wide plank board flooring. Now this is a Torley's flooring product. It's a fabulous quality. The joints in this click lock together and are really tight. You won't see gapping over time. There's a lot of products on the market, a lot of different price ranges, anywhere from $1 a square foot up to 5 or 6. So you get what you pay for. So if you have a 10-year project and you're just looking to make something clean so you can sell your house, by all means, you know, go to the cheaper end. But if you're doing a new build like we are, we're expecting this floor to last a long time. This is going to be a 30 to 40 year floor. We're also installing a bar on top of it, so we can't cut any corners with the quality. So since we're not cutting corners with the quality, we're also using a high quality underpad. This is a very thick piece of rubber. It also has a vapor barrier on it. There's always a vapor barrier on underlay flooring. This product here is good for basement floors and residential use. If you're doing laminate flooring and you're in a situation where you're in a condo or an apartment, you have to get a different flooring that kills the sound. There's a sound transmission rating on that underpad. It's a little more expensive, but generally speaking, if you go to a wholesaler, you can get this kind of product for under 20 cents a square foot. It's not a big expense, so by all means, get the good one. If you go to the building store, you're probably gonna pay 3 to 4 times as much, but don't ever cheap out. Okay, so the bottom of the pad is the gold side, has an adhesive strip so that when you do the next joint, you can tape the pad onto this little bit of leftover foil. So always install the pad in the right direction so that you can add the next layer. Basically, we just roll it out and cut it to fill the space. Now this room's a little dusty, so we're gonna get some footprints. How awesome is that? All right. So the way I do it is I just push it to the wall, find my mark, roll it back to me. Cut both directions and get that out of my way. I'll just fire it underneath the drywall for now so it holds it. All right, and we're good to go. So the basic tools that we need for this project are pretty simple. You should have it: a tape measure, pencil, a hammer. And this is what most people don't have: the cutting tool. Dun, dun, dun. This is the next generation in laminate floor cutters. It's also good for commercial vinyl tile. This thing here has an extension on the arm, multiplies your leverage. So it operates like a guillotine principle. It's just crushing in the gap, and it snaps the board right on the cut line. The cool thing about this is that one person can operate this without having to get up or down, and it creates no dust. This kind of flooring, if you've ever worked with it before and you're using your saw, it's crazy amount of dust. So one of the biggest drawbacks was you always had to cut outside, or you had to wear a mask, or you just got sick and got a sinus infection, and we all learned the hard way. But this tool here is worth its weight in gold. I think it cost me about $400. It's been through the mill a few times here. Still works, haven't had to sharpen it yet. I have nothing bad to say about it. I'll give you a demonstration because I'm gonna need a little piece to start with here. There we go. So when I'm starting my floor, I wanna cut just a first piece, about 5 or 6 inches off. Done. And I'm gonna use this as my nailing block, okay? Because you're gonna find that installing this flooring is not an easy task. We are gonna go from left to right. If you're doing this alone, I'm gonna recommend that you start the first and second row with a half offset. So cut your board in advance, no need to measure. Okay. There we go. And just like any other kind of flooring, you wanna pay attention to your Hing, which is where your joints are meeting up. Now traditionally this locks in nice and simple, right? You just line it up and give it a wiggle, clicks in place. You heard the click? That's the sound of a good installation. You can see we've got this installed so that it slides underneath the baseboard. We don't want to start against the wall right away. I want to start out here. I'm going to show you why. If you're working alone, or even if you have somebody with you, this can be real tricky. You'll see a lot of guys do this. They'll put that side down there. This also clicks together. All right, and they'll drop it in. And then they go to the next piece. And they're in a bit of a conundrum because this type of flooring is not a lay lock system. I can't just drop that in place. You'll see that there's a tongue here. So the way that this works is that this piece actually has to be backed off a little bit. You've got to force it down, and then you got to drive it into the gap from the other side. When you're starting off by yourself, trying to keep things square, having this board here is in your way. So don't do that. Keep that out of your way. And you want to work back and forth on your first and second row. We're going to cross your room. Important to note, traditionally, you'll find that people like the look of the flooring better. There's that click again. If you're running the grain along the longest wall in the room. Now, that piece that I cut off at the very beginning, I'm going to lock that in. Now I take my hammer. Boom. Perfect. That is a really nice tight fit. Never going to have a problem. Now I take this board. The benefit of this tongue and groove action is that it actually locks from both different directions. Okay? So you get it nice and tight. Put your weight on it. Oh, there we go. Beautiful. All right, so now we've gotten to the end of this wall. I want to take my knife out and trim this under pad back a little bit. And this is just to keep the noise down, okay? So it doesn't matter if it goes all the way to the wall or not. It's okay to be shy. And this here is what we do. This is facing the same direction. When you want to measure your cut, you want to do this by eye. All right, so we're at the end. We want to get our piece. Make sure the tongue and groove is all facing the same way. Then take it and turn it around. So now you're going to be measuring the actual gap with the same piece of wood that's going to be cut and installed there. And since nothing in this world is square, you want to take the shortest or where the contact is with the wall and mark the floor to be cut within 1/4 inch of that. Now, because we're using 3/4 inch baseboard, we have a lot of mercy. I mean, I can have this floor come almost 1 inch from the wall and it's still gonna get covered by the time I'm done with all my trim. But for good measure, I like to leave about 1/4 inch there for expansion, contraction. Take it over to the cutter, put your mark right where the blade comes down. Crush it. And now, instead of trying to hammer it in like this, you can just drop that in. This piece, however, is going to be a little trickier because you have no room to get the hammer from the end. So we have to hammer this direction this time. Now, every time you cut a piece, start the next row with the offcut. Save your product, save your time. Here's our piece. Flip it around, make contact with the wall, come back here, measure, cut. And be careful all the time not to chip the corners. If you chip the corners, that piece is no good to you. Nobody wants an ugly piece of floor in the middle of the room. Now, like I was trying to show here, I can't just drop that in. I don't have the room for a hammer. What I can do is the same concept from this side. I can drop that to there. Okay. Oh, here, good note. When you're working with this flooring, keep an eye on the corners, on the back side. If you have debris and it gets caught in these gaps and you force it in, you're gonna be breaking everything apart. Your floor will open up on you. So put this down, lay it in place. Now we take our hammering block, put your weight on this other piece of wood. Wood, it's laminate. That's not going in very nice. Up against the wall now. After you have about 4 or 5 rows done, take a minute and pull this forward out from underneath the baseboard, and then move your flooring from the other side of the room where you have it stored, pile it all up on the floor. That'll put enough weight on it that when you're hammering those end pieces in, it won't be sliding around anymore, and it maintains that gap that you want underneath your floor and around your perimeter. Try to keep a 1/2 inch gap everywhere you go, and your floor will last forever. Now really, all you need to know now is it's gonna take about an hour to finish this room. Not bad. No dust, no mess, hardly any garbage, and it's gonna be brand new and beautiful. So if you've enjoyed this video, feel free to contact us, write a comment down below if you have any questions, hit the like button. We'd like to know if you like it, and by all means, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do. We've got a lot of exciting things coming up, a lot of great material that we've built in our library, so have a look at that too. Thanks for watching. Hi, Jeff here with Max again today. Today we're going to talk about something that might seem a little overwhelming, but I've got a great little hack for you to make this simple. I'm talking about installing crown molding. So in this environment, we're working in this basement. We had some mechanical runs, we built some boxes. We only needed 2, so we designed this whole shape. So I've got an elevated ceiling now in the hallway. So the way we're going to finish it, we didn't tape it because we're going to put crown molding from corner to corner, close all this off. And this is really kind of simple. What we want to do is measure, of course, the inside length of this box, 67 1/4. Now, again, it's very similar to doing baseboards. You're gonna have tape joints, you're gonna have things moving around. Go a little bit smaller, use shims on the backside to close up the gaps, and then you can caulk the rest to finish. You'll always have a nice finish if you caulk your gap versus trying to force things in, okay? So as soon as you start forcing things together that don't quite fit, your alignment's gonna be off, it's gonna look ugly. So leave a little extra space, it's good for you. Now, 67 1/4, that's our first measurement. I'm gonna show you how to install this. I got the cheat for you. So the material we're using today is a finger joint pine, pre-painted, very simple line. It's not colonial, it's very modern. And we're not trying to draw attention to the style of the molding, but we just wanna have that, if you can see that up at the ceiling. There's the visual that it's gonna get. Nice and simple scoop, and it dresses it up, all right? So, before I get into the cheat, we have to cut our measurement. Measure once, and then read the measurement twice. Okay, watch yourself there. Pencil line. And when I'm doing this, because it has a weird shape, you know, generally you do enough work on a saw, you know where your blade's gonna cut. Just leave yourself a little open. Do a first cut. Make as many adjustments as you need until you hit that spot bang on, okay? Because you don't want to get this wrong. Now, the world of miter saws, it has the ability to fold over and cut in different directions. When you're doing a crown molding, traditionally, you have to do a double compound miter. You have to adjust this table angle and the saw blade angle. There's a chart, and you can use that chart to do all that. Or you can go to the store, and you can get a 95% quality job as a homeowner using one of these OG cuts, okay? Simple, it's listed here, interior, exterior cuts. This is the top. You simply put that on the saw, place your material into that guide up against this here. That sets it at 45 degrees. This is the ceiling, so the top of this is gonna be like an inside cut. Set the saw to 45, and the same way we were cutting the length, all right? Because now this is perpendicular, and that's where the angle should start. So I can start my saw and I can just creep along like that until I find that perfect spot. Whoop, whoop. Done. Same thing, switch to the other side. Okay, I gotta come over here because I'm right-handed. And if it helps at all, you can put a little pencil mark where that corner is. When you're finished, just inspect. So you see here, that didn't go right to the corner. There's a little flat spot there. So we want to actually put that back on the saw and just trim off a little bit of a hair. Again, make sure you're holding this nice and tight to the fence, pressing the wood tight to this guide so you get your angle right. There we go. Now the reason this is a 90% solution is because this plastic guide isn't going to work perfect for you. But for the average homeowner, this is going to save you a lot of time and money. This piece of wood fits, and then we didn't cut it too long. And I push it left and right, I'm plus or minus 1/8 of an inch. All right, now the mistake a lot of people make is they'll stick this up here, they'll roll it around, oh, that looks good, fits perfect, they'll nail it in. But what you want to do is take a short offcut piece with the same cut on the other side and put it up against the ceiling, and look at that. That is not how you want to do this. So what you do is you roll that piece of wood, you slide that one in. Now that's the place where you want it. Brace that one, lose that extra piece of help. Mark your line. And remember, you haven't caulked or painted yet, so this isn't going to hurt. I'm not worried about what's going on at the other end. I'm just going to get this end fashioned first. So I'm going to take that down. Now, generally speaking, when I'm doing crown molding, I love to have my teenage sons help me because they're tall and they don't need a ladder. But it's nice to have someone holding things in place for you. If you don't have that luxury, what we need to do, and I see this all the time, honestly. The reason I pencil mark this is so that I can put my caulking on the wall and on the ceiling in advance. I had so many years you get calls, people, oh, the crown molding's cracking, it's all falling apart. And what you find is guys cheat. They come up here, they nail it all together, those little brad nails, they don't use an adhesive. They use a surface caulking line here to finish it all off. And they use the kind of caulking that doesn't have any elastomeric property at all, which means it doesn't expand and contract. So the wood's moving around, but the caulking isn't, and there's not enough there to bond it to the surface. So what I like to do, I like to put some caulking on just inside those two pencil lines. Okay, and if I put too much, that's fine. We're gonna move it out of the way. We haven't painted yet anyway. Now, I'm gonna place this right on that sweet spot between those two pencil lines. And then I'm gonna pull out my nail gun. Generally speaking, I don't have anything to nail this to. There's no wood anywhere I'm going. So I'm going on that angle, and I'm going on that angle. That'll hold it. Okay, now it's in place. And we gotta move a little quick here. So now I'm gonna take this piece, I'm gonna do the same thing in this corner as I did in the other one, and I'm gonna roll this around till I find that happy spot, which is right here. And I'm gonna pencil mark it as well. All right, and I'm gonna open this up a little bit. Again, same tip here. Don't press too hard with your gun. Try not to make too much of a dent. All right, and then just make sure that you're staying in your lines. If you go out of your lines, your next piece is gonna look ugly. Pull the caulking along the same rate that it's coming out, give or take. All right. I prefer the dry finger technique instead of the wet. This is siliconized caulking, and I don't want silicone in my system. It's not healthy for you. All right, there we go. You can see that finishes off really nicely. Note, do not use caulking to fill your nail holes. It'll shrink and it'll show something fierce. You want to use something on here like a Drydex product, or even like a drywall compound, something you can swipe in, leave a little bit extra there, and then use a sanding sponge to take off later. When you paint this, you want that to look like the surface has never been blemished. If you use caulking, it'll shrink and dry out, and then you'll have little dents everywhere. And the way the light works in the room, and the way this is curved, it is gonna scream at you. Someone did it themselves. So here's how we wanna do this. We wanna measure for the next piece. right to the wall and behind the trim in the corner, okay? Over to the other wall. And if you can pick that up on the tape, it says 46 5/8. Now I know from experience that's gonna be a little bit tight, so we're gonna go 46 1/2. Just take a little bit off so that it's gonna fit nice. Again, we'll go to the saw, cut both angles in advance, and we'll come back and set it all up. Again, holding everything nice and tight. Now here's a trick I don't know if I've ever mentioned. When you're using one of these saws, always get the blade running before you go into the meat. Get your maximum RPMs up before you start cutting. You'll extend the life of your blade and it won't start burning so much. Cha-ching! We just want to make sure that we're going to get this corner here rolled roughly in the right direction here. And then over here, we want to line this one up again. This is what I'm talking about. It's the 90% solution. All right, this is why I love this. When you're buying a wood crown molding, every one of these pieces that goes through the mill is going to be slightly different. I don't know why. Drives you crazy. But the width, the curve, the thickness at the ends, the details, every single piece is just a little bit different. And it has something to do with the amount of wood it takes to cut this out. It's just the way it is. So no matter how meticulous you are about lining up your corners, there's going to be a problem. So get them as close as you can, and then you're just going to have to be really good with your caulking. So here, I'm going to demonstrate my point. Here's the piece I've cut to install here. All right, and I line this up, and my line's not bad. It's close. Here's the piece we cut as our template. Much better. Still not perfect. Same saw, same tool, same corner, different piece of crown. It's never going to be perfect. Nice to bit of caulking business there, eh? Now, very important, if you're having a misalignment issue, you can maybe force it together a little bit by pressing that corner in and rolling it down. If that helps. Like I told you earlier, there's not a lot of wood up here to be nailing into. Throw an extra couple of nails. Might be enough to help close it up a little bit tighter for you. This is where being good with your caulking gun is going to come in handy. I'm just going to clean up our excess here. I'm not sure how that looks on the camera, but to me, it looks not bad. Now, I want to come back again here tomorrow and check it again, because like I said, this stuff will shrink. So give it 24 hours. Come back and check it again. Don't be in a hurry to paint this. Let it dry overnight. Come back, do another fill if you need to. But here's the rule. In construction, generally speaking, if you can see the defect from 6 feet away from it, then it's a defect. If you can't, then it's wonderful. So, we're not really in the business of making things perfect. We're in the business of making things look good enough from a certain distance. Call me crazy, but that is going to look fantastic from your distance. 2 more coats, fill the gaps, paint it up. Beautiful. Great cheat. Saves you a ton of time. You don't have to hire a carpenter. You can crown mold in your home house and make it look absolutely gorgeous for just a few $100. Oh yeah. And if you like this video, then subscribe to our channel. We got a lot of great things coming up. Or hit the like button. I like to know that you like it, because then I know what kind of videos to give you in the future. Today we are installing a custom glass sliding door system for a 5-foot shower. Now, it's not custom glass in the respect that we didn't have a glass guy come and measure this to order, but in the fact that traditionally, I'd say 90 to 95% of the bathtubs in this world are a 5-foot width tub. So a few years ago, the market started creating replacement products. So you could pull out your tub, put in a new tub, or just a shower pan, and this is where it got real popular. the 5-foot shower pan. You see them in building stores everywhere now. You even see them in other retail outlets. And you can buy a shower pan with now a sliding door kit that looks pretty darn sexy. Comes with a solid fixed panel, an overhead rail, big stainless steel chrome rail rollers. Looks pretty good. Generally this product runs around $800 to $1,000. There's varying degrees of quality and that sort of thing, brushed nickel chrome. But for the most part, anywhere between an 8 and a 12 millimeter glass, you're gonna get the same result. It's gonna keep the water out of the rest of the bathroom. And it's made of tempered glass, so it's not a safety hazard. So what I recommend is go for the 8 to 10 mil glass products instead of the 12. The 12 mil product is really heavy. And recently we installed one that was available for sale at a local store, and it took 4 grown men to carry it upstairs. So if you want to do this yourself, which you can, we're going to teach you how. Buy the smaller glass, 8 to 10 mil, and you'll be able to manage that on your own, no problem. So before we get started, let's open up the package and see what we have. All right, well, it's Christmas. Let's open this box up and see what we have. Okay, so this shower door comes in 2 different boxes, thank God. It's 10 millimeter glass, so it's really easy for 2 people to carry. You're not gonna be sweating it out and risk dropping this bad boy. Like I was talking about in the intro, we did a 12 mil glass once. It was a lot heavier, and all of the product was in one case. Just nuts. I don't know who designed that, but they should be shot. So here we go. We're just gonna confirm. I'm looking for the fixed panel. Yep, this one's got the holes drilled in it. So this is my first panel. That's good. And then over here, the one with the actual door panel. It's like Fort Knox to open up. Here's all the rails that I need. So, interesting. I need to take out some of this in order to put in some of this. Well, I better get set up and organized. So here we go. We are ready to install our glass door, but first thing we do is we've identified the parts in the box, found our hardware kit, and our instruction manual. You know, you've seen me on these videos probably reading instruction manuals like this. Yes, 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 yes. But I got stumped on this one a little bit. This is a new installation. Usually on these glass door systems, they have an overhead rail. You'll see in this diagram here, there's a bracket that goes attached to each side of the wall, and then the rail goes in the bracket. But my experience, the bracket has got a little piece that's attached to the wall, and it slides up and down the rail. You put it in place, you slide it over, you Allen key it together. That's very nice. It's a real pain in the butt. This looks like a real simple installation. So I'm glad I read this, or I would have been a little bit confused moving forward. Always take the time, you never know. Someone might invent something new someday. Okay, if you've never installed this door kit before, here's step 1. Well, that made perfect sense. There's not a whole lot of instruction here other than a couple of diagrams. So if you've never done this before, you really need to watch this video because this is not going to do you a damn bit of good. Alrighty, here we go. Always carry your glass from underneath and don't assume that just because it feels like you got a good grip, you're going to be fine. All right, so this is the door. The first thing we want to do is get the door in the room. It has to go into the back of the shower. You don't want to try to do this when you have your fixed panel and your overhead rail installed. All right, Nate, so what we're going to do is I'm going to go high. You're going to stay low. We're going to try to keep the glass vertical like this as much as we can and then bring it into the shower. So I'm about as high as I want to go. I'm going to put my hand on the ceiling. Okay, we're going to go like that. A little bit of support there. Okay, bring it right around onto the foam. Now we've got a tarp on the floor just for protection for the shower pan. And those foam blocks, here I cheated and I put the little corners in my pocket. Nate, when we're doing a shower, we're gonna put a fixed panel from here attached to the wall, and then the door slides from behind on an overhead rail. If this glass isn't in here before we start, you saw how little our space was to begin with because we have a drop ceiling? Mm-hmm. Can you imagine trying to squeeze that in? It never happened. By the way, in case you forget, this is Nate. You probably remember him from the deck project that we did.
Hello.
Roll footage. And so he's joined me for the summer again, which is awesome. Glad to have him back. We're going to teach him how to do some of this installation. I've put about 20 or 25 of these glass door systems in so far in my career. They're all basically the same. The door goes in the back. It's not in the information, by the way. That pamphlet doesn't tell you to do that.
No.
That would have been painful. All right, here we go. So what we've got to do is we need the chrome rail, the U-channel that goes against the wall.
Yeah.
And we're gonna need our drills, which we have, the drill bits. We're gonna need the hardwood case, okay? So go get the chrome rail and the hardwood case and let's get busy. All right?
Big chrome.
Okay. So just as a note, if you're doing a new bathroom install, you'll notice I haven't put the finished fixtures on the wall yet. I haven't even installed the toilet yet. Traditionally, bathrooms are a little tight on space, so if you can do your glass system before you put all your other fixtures in, it will be to your benefit. You need all the space you can get to maneuver around here. So according to the directions, and it's going to be the same everywhere, we need to attach the U-channel to the wall. When we frame this, generally speaking, we make sure we always put framing behind the wall. If you don't have framing, plugs will work, but make sure that you're attaching the back side of this with two-sided tape and or silicone. So what we do is we just hold the U-channel up against the wall. We'll pull out the level in a minute, but first I just want to generally mark where these holes are going to be. Okay, so this is the sliding door hardware. So generally this goes down here, my glass goes into here, all right, and then the other door slides in here. So what I'm looking at is, I need a measurement, Nate, of how far from the outside edge to the center of that hole here where the glass panel goes. So from there to the center. Looks like it's about a ½ inch, but maybe 5/8.
No, it's about 1.5 inches or 1.25 inches.
Okay, so the center of this hole, where the pencil is.
Center of that hole.
From the outside edge.
Oh, okay.
And let's make sure it's back in position. There.
There we go.
The center of that hole. So it's more than ½ inch. It's like 9/16 or something stupid.
Sure.
Okay, so then what we want to do is make sure the center of this is 9/16 from that edge. Okay? So let's also put some tape here. Because the more you make things level and square and end from the beginning, the more likely you won't screw it all up. Okay, Nate. Put your tape measure over here. We're going to mark 9/16. On the tape, please. There we go. There's 9/16. That's the center of my glass. Wow, that is really on the outside edge. That's where that has to go. So basically what I'm doing, I have my 9/16 on the rail now. I'm gonna put this 9/16, which represents the center of the glass, put it up against my tile, make my pencil mark where I'm going to be drilling a hole, okay, and then I'm going to be putting tape there. The tape is because I need to use a level to make this mark properly. Okay, so there's my 9/16. So I'm going to just mark my holes that I have to drill. Okay, and now I'm going to put my level on there. Nate, can you make sure that I'm on 9/16 down there, please? Now I'm going to level this.
Yeah, you're good.
And this is one of these cases where you don't want to just be close. You want to be right on the money. Thank you. The benefit of having the DeWalt drill here is that I have a hammer drill function. Yeah, they call me crazy, but I love my hammer drill function. Generally speaking, when you're using this on a bit, and there's 2 bits actually I've used. I like the glass and tile bit. It looks like a little spade shovel, so it has a point, and it doesn't run around on you. This kind tends to travel when you're drilling a hole, so you gotta kind of really brace yourself, and then hold the drill against the wall, get a couple points of contact, and you want to start your hole just underneath your pencil mark, like this, and hold it still while it makes its mark, and then, whoop, see what I'm talking about? Slowly lift it into place. And then once you get a nice hole that'll hold it steady, That's noisy. Here's the other kind of bit. Looks like a little spade tip on it. It's carbide tipped. This should do a good job just as well. The difference is these only tend to last so long and you don't want to overheat them. So you might only get 2 or 3 holes drilled with something like this, but if all you're doing is that one shower, it's good to go. Loving that.
That is some tough tile.
Woo!
Holy.
That is some strong ass stone. Damn. Oh! Ladies and gentlemen, we're in. So these are about $9 times 4, $40. They'll work. They're really good for ceramic, but this is a really hard porcelain. Want to use the other bit, which is about $40. So you might as well get one that's going to work over and over and over again, because that's just maddening. Hey, crazy. So I had a problem today. I was out of my silicone that I usually use, my new Flex. So bum, 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 bum. We had to go to the hardware store. God help us. It says French, water resistant in 30 minutes. Not bad. I guess if you're really in a hurry to get it wet. It's a 10-year mold resistance, microban technology, kitchen bath, blah, blah, blah. That's nice. Silicone always needs to be pierced. Make sure you do that, or you will make one heck of a mess trying to squeeze it out of the tube. It'll come out the back end. All right. So whenever we're working like this, we'll put silicone in the hole first as a good measure for sealing up that hole before we put any screws or plugs. Now, thanks, Nate.
You're welcome.
If you have wood in behind, then you'll be fine. If you don't, you want to use a plug. If you do, I use a plug. Squeeze that in the silicone right there. These plugs are about the same thickness as my stone and wallboard. Lovely. So, like most manufacturers, they use these Phillips bits. Real pain in the butt. Phillips bits don't hold on to a screwdriver worth a darn. So pre-thread your screw through the hole, because you can't hold your metal bracket and your screw and your drill all at the same time. All right, and now this is really easier to do if you have really skinny fingers. What you want to do is hold the screw top on the drill bit like this and then insert it. Got it. So once you have your rail on, that establishes where your glass panel is going to go. At the end of your glass panel, they have this little attachment. There's a few different varieties of this, but in this case, this one slides over the piece of glass. There's a little cap here you can pop off and put a screw into the shower pan. I'm not a big fan of that. I would prefer to use silicone and two-sided tape for all these applications, just because if you buy custom glass, all of these accessories, that's all they're going to use, silicone and two-sided tape. Why these manufactured glass systems always want you to put screws through your shower pan and then risk water getting in there and start to go black and gunky, and you just don't need that. So what we're going to do is we're going to just cut a few pieces of the trim that we have. They're like little pieces of rubbery gasket, and we're going to use these like a silicone shim for leveling off the glass panel. I check the angle of this. It's about 1 degree off, and you want to get this door on as square as humanly possible. Now the doors themselves will adjust the height, the way the roller sits on it, to close against the wall. But if you can mitigate some of the, the variances by having the door panel itself perfectly level, it just makes the rest of the installation so much smoother. So I suggest take an extra few minutes here, make sure your glass panel is in as level as possible before you move forward. And for that, you're gonna need some of these little rubber shims. Same rule as before, you wanna keep the glass as vertical as you can. And this is more of a one-man installation here. So we're gonna come in and then you're gonna let go so that I can drive. I'm gonna wash the ceiling and the floor at the same time.
Yep.
Use your shoe. Okay. You can see I've only got a few inches of clearance at the ceiling here. So I'm gonna use my shoe and use that to slide this glass into place. Aren't we glad we don't have a toilet here yet? Now I'm gonna bunny hop it up onto the rail. Now the way we do this, lift it up and stick the corner in the gap first. All right. And then just slide it over. Nice and gentle like. So I'm just lifting up the corner here, putting in my, you got that?
Yep.
Putting my little shim package in. Whoa, remember you had that?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, set it down.
Right now?
Yeah, slowly. Okay. Oh. That is almost perfect. So here's the secret, and I know this is gonna blow your mind. I take my shim pack. Nate, can you lift the glass, please?
Yep.
Just a touch. And I'm gonna move it over a couple of inches. Set it down.
Mm-hmm.
Bam. So here's the deal. The closer your little shim pack gets to the corner, the more the whole glass will rotate and it'll go in line. So for the do-it-yourselfer, if this is your first time doing one of these doors, there is a step that you can do here and turn this into a 2-day installation. You could at this point silicone the walls, silicone the floor, let this all cure for 24 hours and then come back and install the rest. That makes life really simple. Then nothing is guaranteed to move. But if you don't have that luxury of time, you can, believe it or not, use a little bit of tape to keep everything in place while you're finishing the build. It's amazing how strong tape can be. Just put it on both sides. Basically, you're just taping the glass to the shower pan, creating a resistance. Now the glass won't move around. Okay, there we go. Let's continue on. We've got to take our rail and attach our hardware here. This is the part that goes in the glass. And you can always tell which side goes in the glass because it comes with these little plastic covers that separate the metal, right? That way you don't have contact with the metal in the glass to avoid chipping. So the screw holes are in the instructions, so many millimeters over, so many millimeters down. I hate that sort of thing. I'm more of a visual person. I like to do a rough in, make sure I'm comfortable with what I'm doing. So that's exactly what we're gonna do. I've worked with different systems. Some of them come with a little L-shaped square on it, and you can set it on there and mark the holes. That's brilliant, but this system doesn't have that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put this hardware in here and just fuss around until we find that sweet spot. There we are. And we're not gonna tighten it all the way up yet. We're just gonna place it in. So this particular hardware, it comes in 2 pieces. Very nice. Now these are just decorative covers, okay? Not necessary to put those on right at the moment, but just visually they'll help keep you in check. Now I need the other one to go on this side.
Okay. There you go.
All right, so what this happens, you can see this little bracket here, and on your left side of that bracket there are 2 screw holes. And the bottom is going to carry the weight of the bar. All right? And so all you're gonna do is you're gonna set it the level, you're gonna slide this over, and you're gonna screw that to the wall. In order to do that, we have to take our Allen key in this particular case, which I thought was in my pouch, and there it is. And we're just gonna rough to mate where level is and tighten the Allen key to it so it doesn't slide off. Okay, so now that I've got both of my ends tightened to my bracket, I'm not attached to the wall yet, obviously. This isn't tight either. We want to level it off before we mark this thing, okay? So here's the key. This is a little torpedo level. It comes with a magnetic side. You'll notice that with stainless steel, it kind of works. Kind of. to prevent damage. Don't trust it. It's also very short, so even when you think you're level, it's really hard to tell. Now that's a really good quality torpedo level, but the longer the level, the more accurate the reading. And you'll see that according to this one, I'm out. So even the torpedo level said it was perfectly level, and it was wrong. Bigger is always better. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna just trace the outline with the pencil. I don't wanna use a marker here. Like I said, this is a Lapato tile, so it is porous. I'll trace all these first, and then we're gonna take all this hardware off, and we're gonna come back and drill these holes, and then mount these brackets in the exact position that we want them. Just give it a mark and away we go. And then we drill 4 more holes. We'll be back in a minute. I like to use the back of my tape measure to put my plugs in the wall. It's rubber, solid, gets the job done. Doesn't break anything. You'll see there that I'm pretty much exhausted my ability to put that plug in. I'm up against the wood. I'm just a little bit crazy. I like to go a little overkill. There we are. Okay, so we got to set our bar in position and put that through the glass. So what you end up with is something that's carrying weight in 3 points. Now that we've got this in its final resting place, I'm going to put my Allen key in there. There is a hole in the side of this, and you use your Allen key to tighten it up, like a wrench. Brilliant. So quick recap. Now we've got our fixed panel in place, and we have our overhead bar secured and in place. So every structural element of this is done. From this point forward, what we're going to do is we're going to hang the door, make the adjustments, and then add all the finishing trims just to keep the water from getting out of the shower. And then we're basically done. So what we're going to do here is we got to take these wheels apart. So it's helpful here to have an extra pair of hands. All right. So I've got my wheel and my little plastic gasket here just to keep all of the metal from being in contact with the glass. Important here, there's a wheel where the hole is offset. All right, so when you turn that for adjustment, you're actually raising and lowering the glass. And that's the other side with the nut. So you put the nut facing outside, and then you put on the nut. Hold the nut and just spin the wheel till it's finger tight. Keep your decorative cap side, because you won't need that until after you're done making all your final adjustments. Do the same on the other side.
My turn.
Nothing but packaging. You want to do this one?
Sure.
Okay, you're up.
Plastic.
Mm-hmm.
Gray.
Uh-huh. Which side goes in? Yeah.
The
Okay,
round
good.
side. Nut.
And then hold the nut onto the thread and then turn the big wheel.
I got big fingers, man.
And that's why you want to move the big wheel.
There we go.
Yeah, it's important when you're threading something like that, go in reverse until you feel it catch, and then go forward so you don't cross thread it. All right, is it snug? Not gonna fall off?
That's
We're good?
Yeah.
Okay, here's the moment of truth, ready?
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna use 2 people here. We're gonna lift this onto the rail, okay? So
like here?
your job will be to make sure that both of these are going onto the rail.
Okay.
My job will make sure that the bottom glass goes into that little gap there
Okay.
at the same time. All right?
So we want to bring it up and then just drop it in place.
And straight down.
Okay.
So you take care of it visually on top, and I'll take care of visually on the bottom.
Okay.
Okay. Are we good?
We're good.
And down now.
Nice.
We're there?
We're there.
Good, and we're in our slide.
Hey.
So this system here has got these little brake system built into the hardware. Snug as a bug in a rug. That's nice. That's a great little catch. That's it. Force it against the glass yourself. And All right, so all of these gaskets, they don't apply with any adhesive, no silicone, just it's a compression fit. They're also available for replacement parts. If you go to your local glass shop, anybody that has 8 or 10 or 12 mil glass will carry these in stock. So if you have a kit that requires you to cut them to size, then you make a mistake, just go and get a new replacement. They're only a few dollars, they're in stock, and that way you won't be disappointed with the final result. When you're pressing this in, just be really careful. It's a very rigid plastic. So if you go too fast, you'll end up burning your thumb. Creates a lot of heat. So nice and easy. So these gaskets are designed to keep the water from getting out. Water generally is a problem at the bottom of the shower, not the top, which is why we didn't use silicone in the screws mounting the top rail. You're not going to get covered in water up there. So once you get your bottom established really well, you go ahead and finish all that off. Really the last step for us here is just to put a little bit of brackets down here in the silicone. This is our drip edge. This is just a little threshold that they've designed. It goes outside the door, so any water dripping off the glass, it gets redirected back inside the shower. And then we're done. We just got to silicone and walk away. So now that we've got that in place, the reason I put those on first is because this particular system doesn't have a guard on the rail. Some systems that have a little bumper here, so when you open the door, boom, it stops there nice and shy. You're never going to have contact with the wall. This one, it goes snug right at the wall. Call me a little nervous, but I want to make sure I got that little protection. And over here, this system again, there's nothing to stop this from going all the way in except the break here. And because it's a new system to me, I didn't want to take any chances, so now I got something nice and soft for it to land on. Got in those pieces. This wheel here is designed, and this is going to be crazy, and we'll adjust these in a minute so that when this is threaded on, the door can't lift off the mount. That's simple. So if you grab the handle and you give a bit of a lift, it'll bang into the rail and it won't fall off. That's all that is. It's just for safety. And push. Okay, in the kit you're going to get one of these little wrenches. Depending on the kit, there may be more than one wrench. But here, what we've got is a really interesting situation. This door, in spite of our best efforts, is just a little off level. We're going to put this wrench on, okay? I'll go this way, you should be able to see real easy. You'll see the glass rise up and down. We want to go down on our end over here as much as we can. It's amazing, this one little adjustment will do such a huge difference. And then we're going to take our wrench in the middle, grab the little nut, and tighten it up so we can lock that spot in place. Okay? Because we like the way that that's sitting. We don't want to let that change. We tighten that nut in place now. These are the decorative knobs that we had off earlier. We'll just throw those on. Now we need a door handle, of course. Same rule applies. You're going to want to put one of these pieces of plastic gasket on each side. There's a set screw on here. I want the set screw facing down. And again, it's so good to have 3 hands. So the last part is just to put your trim on the base. This is just water deflection, so this is not a real big issue. We're going to just add some silicone to this piece of plastic that receives the door. Okay. Really important here. Slide the door over. Let the door dictate where that should go. Okay. And then slide it away again. This last little piece here goes outside the door. There we go. We'll go under that trim. All right. So what I would do is I would use it like a straight line just to mark where it's going to go. This product will work for me. Shapers. And down, and then back through the hole. Ever so gently, just to split the difference. All that's left now is to take your clear silicone, use a nice mildew resistant product that's going to last for a while, go around and make a nice seal anywhere where the metal meets the tile or the glass meets the acrylic base, and just close it all up with the silicone. Remember, this sort of a system is not a waterproofing, it's just a water diversion. So as long as everything that the water is going to be touching while it's following gravity and heading towards the drain is sealed up, it won't start creeping back underneath. Even the edge on this base has got probably a 2-degree slope. So everything is being diverted back into the drain. So what I like to do is seal up the outside first, and then once everything is all finished, then I'll go back in the next day. I'll seal up the inside and silicone all of my shower, because I still have all my inside around the ceiling and around the base to do. But then your shower system is done. Most of these units follow a similar principle. There might be little adjustments here or there, but remember the steps are simple. Lots of measuring, do a dry run, have an extra pair of hands, and you'll be able to do this yourself too. We're going to teach people how to install a toilet today. But more than that, it's new construction. So we have a rough-in from the home builder. This is the rough-in from the home builder. And we've got a PEX water supply line that we're going to crimp down to the wall from the backside after we're done today. Basically what we do is we've got to turn the water off. Rule number 1, it's important now because this is charged. We're going to cut this line, put a shut-off valve on it. This is actually a pair of trim scissors. I use this when I'm installing quarter round or shoe mold. I can actually just run around a room with this and cut the angles for all my little pieces of wood. But it advertises that it cuts pipe too, so we're about to find out. I just got an old pail here. There's going to be some water and water pressure. So we're going to just give this a cut. There we go. If you don't have the right tool for the job, have a good tool for the job at least. That's a lot safer than using a knife. There we go. I'm going to cut this back a little bit where I don't see any compound or anything on the pipe. So this is the shark bite shutoff valve. Okay. Basically what we're doing is we're just going to push this and twist it onto the pipe. And then they have this decorative little cap here as well. But before we do that, we're going to put on a cover plate onto the pipe. You can always get a cover plate that goes on afterwards called a split pipe flange. I like using these because they're twice as cheap. All right. So we're going to just put this on. Twist. Done. And done. So we can clean all the mud off that pipe a little later. One of the advantages of this system is that after you install it, you can still adjust this. So you can help keep from getting a kink in the line on the feed to the toilet. That becomes kind of a cute little system, eh? We just installed the shutoff valve in a brand new construction PEX line in about 6 or 7 seconds. And you can't do that with copper. You'd have to solder that and drain the line and dry it out. And if you're a homeowner and you're renovating your own house, this is the way to go. So from the backside, you just put on a little clamp, nail that into place, hold all this nice and tight. We're gonna be good to go. Now, for moving on to the toilet. The plumbing rough-in has a 3-inch piece of pipe here for the toilet. So I went out and I bought myself this handy little ABS saw. I got this a couple weeks ago because I had to make an adjustment in a ceiling for a vent stack. It was just kind of nutty, but I could only reach in there with a long saw like this to get to it. So I thought, this is great. This tool was only like $9. So if you're doing a little bit of plumbing at home and you're looking for a good way to cut pipe, this is a really small fine-tooth saw. It cuts the ABS instead of melting it. A lot of tools out there will melt it and it just makes a hell of a mess. But basically what you do, you bend the saw blade, kind of hold it to the ground, and we're just cutting flush. All right, just gonna take my knife, clean the burrs. Okay, now this is my flange. It's a 3-inch inside pipe flange for just such an occasion. Nate, can you grab me a coffee cup, please? All right, what we're gonna do, so we're gonna glue the inside of the pipe, and then we're gonna glue the flange. Okay.
taking very careful note where these rectangle holes are, not to have them at 3 and 9 o'clock. That's where the bolts start, and then you want to move them. So press that nice and tight. And then when your bolt goes in, it'll slide into position and it'll be locked there when you tighten your toilet. These little rectangular areas here to allow the bolt to access. So make sure you position your flange in a good spot. Thank you. And of course, until we're ready to go all the way, let's get rid of the sewer gases. So when you're doing your toilet install, you want to make sure that you've got all your bolts and nuts and your decorative caps, because this is something you want to install before you put the brass nut on, okay? Very important. If you try doing that first, installing the toilet and adding these later, you'll be sadly disappointed with the performance. This actually snaps on and is designed to sit snug to the toilet. So you have to install this piece before your brass nut, okay? When we go to install, we can put our wax ring there. Okay, take the nuts off. Oh, don't let it go down the hole in the toilet. Dear Lord. Now these little things here are great. They just attach to the thread, and they're designed so that once you put it in position, you can pull up on the nut like that, and it'll hold it standing up. That way when you're putting it on your toilet, it takes a lot of the guesswork out. The way you do this is actually from the front. Hold the bowl like that. Straddle this whole situation. I can now carry the weight on my elbows, and I can hover over the toilet and visually make sure that I'm getting that bolt in each one of those holes, and then just follow that down. And now I want to put the same kind of pressure on the whole toilet surface the entire time I'm pressing down. And sometimes the best way to do that is just have a seat. Perfect. Important to note, you want to put your little metal washer, and then you put this. Now, I don't know if the camera will pick this up, but on the top of this, they actually print the sign this side up. You'll see it this way. It's like the roof of a house. You want that there because that's actually what the toilet bowl cover is going to go over top of, and that's how it snaps on. And then you put on the nut. Nate, can you run upstairs and get the grinder with the metal cutoff wheel out of the truck, please? So every time you buy a toilet bolt, it's too long. They make it long on purpose. Generally speaking, they make them so no matter how many layers of flooring somebody's added to their house, they can attach a toilet. So don't ask me why, but they go a little bit overboard here. It's 2.5-inch toilet bolt. If you end up needing a toilet extension, in the kit, they have 3-inch bolts. So it'd be nice if just once somebody would make a toilet bolt that was the right bloody size and install a toilet in a normal situation. So I'll show you how to use the hacksaw to do this first, because I don't expect everybody to have a grinder with a metal cutoff wheel, but basically, this is similar to drywall. You want less pressure, but lots of movement, okay? I mean, you are only cutting brass here after all. Nice and controlled, because you don't want to break the toilet. And if it's a little bit too loose, just tighten up the bolt again. And they'll just break right off. Snap that bad boy on. Blow off your dust, you're good to go. So the alternate method is pull out your grinder with your cutoff wheel. This works great too, and it works in a jiffy. So, safety first, but it says you can't be cool while you're safe. Oh yeah! So now we got our tank. Thank you, Nate. Now this is a little gasket. Actually a big one. Goes on the end. Roll that sucker on. Make sure it's contacting the toilet the entire area around. It's pushed on as far as it goes. And then all we gotta do with this particular model, and I should mention, sometimes there are toilet companies out there that make these bolts that you'll slide in and you have to attach to the tank first and then put it on the toilet. So double check your directions. Always double check your directions. Sometimes people do little weird things that you don't see coming. Set it in place. we're dropping these in their holes. The idea that this rubber gasket under compression creates that watertight seal. Okay. All right, so here's my secret for putting on the tank bolts. Hold the nut in your hand. You set the washer on top of it like that. Reach down and hold the bolt steady. And set it in place. Go backwards until you feel it grab the thread, and go forwards. Okay. I don't know what it is with toilets, but every bolt seems to be so bloody long. Okay. I swear there's one company in the world somewhere in Thailand that makes nothing but toilet bolts, and they do it for the whole bloody world. And so there's all these different sizes to make one universal toilet bolt. The guy that's making the toilet bolts over there is probably a billionaire. And you want to tighten that until your tank is nice and secure. Just gonna... Okay, there we go. Ta-da! Now, the other thing you want to do is install your water supply. Now these lines usually come with a big sticker. Get rid of the sticker. Nobody wants to see that down the road. We just thread that on to our 3/8. Just be careful when you buy your shutoff valve that it says 1/2 inch and 3/8. You can get a 1/2 inch quarter. Remember that 3/8 is the typical water supply for toilets and faucets, where 1/4 inch is the water supply for a fridge line. You don't want to get the wrong one, because this will make a 15-minute job take a whole hour, because you got to do a return trip to the store. There you go. Once it's snug, take the wrench and put a couple of turns into it. Bring your water supply up. Okay. Now, if you were looking from the back side at that, it's actually turning to the right. Okay. So it's actually turning clockwise if you imagine yourself staring at it from the floor. It's important. Always look at it from the position of staring at the bolt, and then you'll know which way to go. There's the advantage of this shutoff valve. It gets to be installed wherever it's comfortable. And like I said, now that that's done, I'm going to go and clamp that to the wall. Nate goes and turns the house water back on. We're going to pop these little caps from the back side. Because this bathroom is being used kind of as in the event of company, and it's downstairs and around the corner and down a hall, I wasn't concerned about a soft close, but just a word of caution. If you're going to be installing a toilet seat in your ensuite or the main bath, and there's a lot of people around, just invest in the soft close. If you go to a plumbing supply place, it's about 25, 35 bucks depending, and then you can't slam the lid and wake anybody up when you're done. So again, this is just another 1400 inch bolt for no particular reason. It's like turn and turn and turn and turn and turn. Dear Lord, the guys that make these bolts, we're gonna finger tight, and then we're gonna tighten these bad boys down. There's a rubber gasket on this, so once I over tighten it, it should be good to go. Snap your covers in place. That sounds like the water's on. And 1/4 turn shutoff valve. It's gonna have a little bit of air in the line, don't let that scare you. And there we go. Make sure it's functioning properly. So all we want to do now is wait to make sure that the water fills up. The tank should be marked with a water line. If everything's working properly, it'll stop filling. If it doesn't stop filling, this is your adjustment on your float. Okay, so you can loosen it or tighten it to adjust how much water you have in the tank. These particular toilets are low flow, and they go down to 1.1 gallon per flush, which is almost nothing. Love me some water conservation. Here we go. Right out of the factory to the water line. Gotta love it. So just a quick shout out to the ProFlow company. These toilets are available from Wolseley, Canada. I'm not sure if they're made available anywhere else, but great value. They have the largest P-trap available in toilets and the lowest amount of water available in toilets. And Oh, they're even quiet too. In today's world, we're using a lot of new different materials to finish off of our kitchens and our bars or our vanities. And one of the real popular materials now is the live edge slab of the tree. Now this one here is 2.5 inches and it's 9 feet long and it's made of ash. And in our part of the world, we've had something called the ash borer beetle, which has been eating away between the bark and killing these trees off. And so this is actually a piece of dead tree that was cut down and planed and turned into this countertop. So although we're using a whole lot of wood, it's something that wouldn't have a purpose otherwise. So we're repurposing a dead tree to make a countertop. Very cool. So the way we installed this countertop originally is really quite, creative. Came up with my own little system using wood doweling, just a few bucks at the hardware store. And this is 7/8, and so what we did is we bought a drill bit just a little bit bigger, okay? So this is 15/16, and it's just a little bit bigger. So what we can do is we pre-drill holes in the wall that we made and on the back side of the countertop. We fill them both with glue, invert it, hammered it down with our hands, and that's how we installed that with some temporary supports. So my system for installing these wooden countertops is very basic. You don't need a whole lot of tools or skill. What you need is a piece of 1x4, something that uses a straight edge. In this case, we have a leftover piece of hanging rail from an IKEA kitchen, and this works great because it has lots of contour, guaranteed to be straight. And what we're gonna do is just lie these down. We're gonna measure this off. The back of our counter is almost 8 feet long, and our lumber is exactly 8 feet long. So we know that when we're screwing our doweling in, if I line that up with the edge of my countertop, I want to have a 1-inch overlap. So I'm just going to place this where I want it, get my spacing, and I'm going to fasten the 1x4 to my slab here. And I've got to leave enough room on the other side for my backsplash. All right. We're temporarily screwing this in place up against the straight edge to create a nice straight line. And because it's hardwood, it's good to have an impact driver. There we go. There, now it's straight. So, we're gonna take our drill bit, which is just a little bit bigger than the dowels that we're using. My counter is this long. My 1-inch overhang will be to here. So once we've got this prepped, we're gonna be able to cut the countertop off, but I don't want doweling too close to the edge, so I'm just gonna back it up a little bit. We're gonna go somewhere healthy, like 8 inches from the edge. Okay, I'll mark that spot, and I wanna have about 8 of these. So I'm gonna go every 15 inches. So, what we're gonna do is we'll just mark off 15 inches. Now that we know it's gonna work up here, 25, 60 inch, and 75. All right. And we're gonna drill a hole through our 1x4 where we want the doweling to go. And then once we start into the hardwood, we'll stop and we'll drill that hole out in a minute. Okay. Now we're going to remove this. And we're going to flip this over, invert it, go flush with the end, knowing that the holes will line up, leaving the countertop 1 inch longer. Okay, I want you to hold it here and here, okay, where the screw is, and then I'll manipulate the wood over here into position. So then I'm going to manipulate my wood to straight, and there we go. Now all my doweling are lined up. All right, so I had my assistant cut me a bunch of these little pieces of the doweling at 1.25 inches, and he's using the palm sander to round off the edges, just to make installation nice and sweet. We don't want to have to be fighting to pound all the holes in. Now, at 1.25 inches, half of that, of course, is 3/4 inch. So 3/4 inch from that tip is the depth that I want to set the base at. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this tape just a little bit above 3/4 on my bit, so that when I'm drilling, it acts like a little marking flag. All right, and this is just a great way to make sure you're not going too deep and going right through into the quartz. That would be bad. Now we're using this 1x4 as our template. So it was on the countertop, we flipped it over, installed it on our wall, and now we're gonna mark into our plate with the drill. And this is a self-fed bit, so it sticks out nice and deep. We just want to get that center hole. Now we'll remove our 1x4 and finish drilling our holes. Again, we have the same depth set with the tape. The trick here is go a little bit deeper than halfway where the tape line is, because we want to make sure that we have room for the glue to be on the top and the bottom, and the countertop sit nice and flush. This is a soft wood that we're drilling into. It's a lot easier. There we go. So our design is now 95 inches plus an inch overhang on each side, which is 97. So we're gonna do, as I measured and mark that, and I'm gonna take my 18 1/8, transfer that information here so we can cut it square. And we're gonna cut the slab before we flip it over, because we're using a skill saw which cuts from underneath. And if we cut this way, we're actually cutting through the finished side of the counter. That'll keep it from having any splinters and splits and tears. If we install it first and then cut it, we run the risk of tearing up the top of our counter just before we're trying to finish it, and that would be bad. And I'm gonna be cutting this tree from the side that's not falling off so that the saw doesn't run any risk of binding. Somebody needs to hold the weight but not let it twist towards me. Just one is fine. So now what we want to do is be generous with our glue. Fill our hole about 1/3 full. That'll guarantee contact. The worst thing that happens here is it squeezes out, and you can wipe it up with a wet rag. There's no such thing as too much in this scenario. You could definitely not use enough. I'm gonna put the dowel in the wall that we built, okay, as opposed to the countertop. And flip. Come on, get it in position. Right towards you, Nate. Okay, lifting this side, please. Very careful. And I've got a couple of set screws here. Now I just grabbed a couple of 2x3s, put adjustable feet on them, and a quick little mending plate so that I can make some temporary legs. And down, and put some weight on that wood. There you go. Okay. Okay, just a real quick note. Once you've got the finish nice and sanded and there's no raised grain, just double check your edges. I mean, the edge of a counter is always going to be dangerous to a certain degree, but sometimes when these come out of the planing machine, the edges are so sharp that if somebody who is short was to bump into it, they wouldn't just bump into it, it'd be sharp enough to actually split their skin open. So try to take care of the tots
Well, that's about all I can show you today. We're using this bar and table finish by Varathane. It's a 2-part epoxy resin finish, which is amazing. It gives you that real thick glass look when you're done, just like you see in some of the pubs and restaurants you've been to. We're gonna wait until this finish is drying before we start working on the surface. And we're also going to be installing, your classic black metal bars for some additional support. We're gonna put them about halfway back and bring them to the ground with a threaded rod. That way we can adjust it before we screw it to the surface. And that's gonna work wonderful. That'll give me a little peace of mind knowing that when people are putting weight on here that they shouldn't be, or dancing on the counter, no one's gonna have an injury. If you'd like to see this finish, all you've got to do is click the link at the end of the video. You're going to have an opportunity to go and see the whole project video itself, where we're going to have all the finished pictures and camera angles, and I'm sure you can enjoy that as well. We're looking forward. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this kind of finish. Put some in the comments below. If you've got a better product or experience using something different, that you've got a favorite product, by all means, I'm open to suggestions. I'm just using this because this is what's available at my local building store. I'm open to suggestions. So that's it for today. Thanks for joining us. And again, if you enjoyed this video, click the thumbs up button. You have no idea how important it is for that interaction. And if you have any questions, leave a comment below. I like to answer all of them still. It'll be about 100,000 subs before we have to start getting other people involved to help answer those questions. But for now, I do it on my own, and I'm up every night taking care of that. So we'll see you next time. Well, we are finished. And when I mean finished, I mean finally finished. What started off as a pretty straightforward project to finish a basement space kind of took on a life of its own as the clients started to see it unfold and expand their vision and came up with new ideas. So originally we had designs for just a small bar in the corner, and every time we took another step around the corner into the developing of this project, the bar grew and grew and grew, and we had to get designers involved and change our expectations. We added these awesome elements, and now what we have is something that is absolutely spectacular. This is a real showstopper here. So we have a live edge countertop, we have our quartz countertop. Believe it or not, all of these cabinets are from IKEA, so shout out to them, thanks for that. They actually function really well in this space, and we were able to modify and do all of our creative products with it. So that worked out well. Loving the bar top. This is an 8-foot by 8-foot bar now. Sits in the middle of the space, so hopefully this will be big enough to satisfy all of their entertaining needs. But as you can see behind us, the lighting in here is brilliant. It's not even very sunny today, but this is a main floor kind of environment, even though it's a basement, because it is a walkout. And because of that, it deserved a little bit extra attention, a little bit more detail, some really quality finishing. And so what we've done is replicated everything from upstairs and brought it downstairs. So we have the sills on the windows and a nice thick trim, very, very modern look. So we're really pleased. You can tell as you walk around, the flooring is actually awesome. This is a Torlease floor. This is a laminate floor product, but it is really high quality. Incredibly durable, has a great texture, fits nice and tight together. And so if you're looking for a floor for your house, I would suggest this. This stuff is amazing. Of course, the double doors are in, and the bulkheads are all finished, and the space is huge, wide open. And even though it's a basement with the drop ceiling feature, it doesn't feel like a cramped space. You have nothing but room here. So I'm really pleased. I know the clients are happy. I know the crew's happy to be done. And I know Max is happy that we're filming this. So one of the things about this bar that we love is the fact that we have so much space between the wall and the cabinetry. When you're designing a space like this, it's not enough to just squeeze it into a wall. You want to make sure that your features function properly. You got lots of room. All right, this is a big enough bar. There could be more than one person back here, so you definitely need the space. And remember, when you're doing a project like this, the last thing you do is you always make sure you shove a bottle of champagne in the fridge for your clients. Little surprise. So as we're leaving the main room and heading into the hallway, and by the way, really loved how the tile floor turned out. Again, hats off to the Pay Grand tile leveling system for helping us with that. Really important to note here, in a basement, you really need to make sure you have nice wide hallways, open foyer concept. So we changed the design from the original plan that had bigger bathroom and bigger spare room and made wider hallways. So when you come down into this level, this is not a basement feel, this is just a different level, and it is awesome. So now we're gonna head on into the bathroom, we're gonna show you how we finish that off. So one of the things we changed in the original redesign of this bathroom, it was a typical 5x7. So it would have been shower, tub, vanity, door, a little bit of walkway, and that takes up about 35 square feet. So what we did is we changed the design and we went with a 6x7 and made it more rectangular. So when you do that, you end up with the door in the middle, opening into an area that seems a lot bigger, and you're not so cramped. I hate those 5x7 bathrooms. And so what we did is by changing that, we actually made the hallway a foot bigger and stretched the bathroom this way and took over a little bit more of the storage area, which wasn't really necessary because I had tons of space available there. This way, this bathroom, although it's still tiny, it feels rather large, you're not claustrophobic, and there's room for a couple of different design features. You can put accents and different things in the room, and you're not gonna feel cluttered. We have a simple little vanity here, a built-in storage shelving unit. It may function as a guest bathroom, so that way they can load it up with towels and not have to worry about things. And then the shower is basically, it's a 5x30 inch sliding door kit with the overhead shower rail. This is really nice, works out fantastic. Simple tile wall, and again, we're using our ProFlow system in the bathroom shower wall. This is one valve, and it only has one control, but we put it on the adjustable slide bar. So no matter who you are, this is real easy to function. It's just thumb control, and then you can remove the wand and then wash the shower down. This is about as basic as it gets, but it's very elegant and very stylish. Now remember, when you're designing a space like a basement and you have low ceilings, the secret is lights. Lighting, 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 lighting everywhere, okay? That is the key. So the LED pot light is a brilliant way to do it because these are installation afterwards. You can link extra ones into the system after the fact if you need it. Once you start with an LED light, you can add 15 or 20 on the same run because they don't use a lot of power and they don't generate heat. So, like for instance, in this area here, this is basically just a hallway. And it's been widened out, and we have a nice big 36-inch door going to the storage area, so it'll facilitate storing anything, moving in and out without damaging things over time. But up in the ceiling, we had a similar situation. If you remember that old Victorian kitchen that we did, we had heat run city going on in this area. So this is just off the furnace, and we had to hide that, we had to hide this, we had to hide something over here. So we ended up just creating this whole box ceiling effect with 2-tier and doing the crown molding, put in a couple of pot lights, and so now, instead of just a bunch of boxes in the basement without any purpose and they look kind of in the way, we've created this ceiling effect where this looks like a design ceiling that's done on purpose to create this effect of height, and I think it's beautiful. It's a great way to solve a problem. So thanks for joining us for this marathon how-to video. Everything you need to know from A to Z to build a basement. Now, if you're a home renovator and you're just looking for knowledge and information and techniques and processes, then we have other A to Z videos for you. We have our deck series, we have a bathroom series, and we have more coming up. So check out our playlist down below. Comment on these videos if you have questions relating to your project. We'd be happy to answer them for you. And looking forward to seeing you again next time.